is also awarded himself twice under his convenership. As a faculty, he has provided support to ICI and various management institutes, universities, and public sector undertakings. And he's also not only a good speaker, he's also a passionate long distance runner and has successfully completed marathons in Delhi and Mumbai. With these words, I welcome Tarun sir on behalf of East and CP Head Circle and all the participants. May I request sir, please.
Thank you.
Before starting, I request all the participants to mute yourself, please, sir. And if you have any, sir, if there is any query in between, whether they should take in between or in the last of the session.
No, I think we'll take half an hour in between. After half an hour, we'll take the questions, and another half an hour we can have the question sessions in between.
So according to sir, this session has been divided in 2 groups, and after completing the first session, there will be a question and answer forum with regard to that particular topic. So we request you to raise all such questions then only. Further, I request not to put your membership number or any detail through chat. Sir, आपने जब अपना enroll किया होगा, at that time itself we have received your membership number and everything. Please avoid to say hello or membership number or other things via chat. Please keep this chat column free for queries only. Sir, sir, आपका आवाज काफी slow आ रही है sir actually. तरुण सर स्टार्ट करें सर क्या?
Yes. Am I audible now, Sumit?
सर बहुत स्लो है आवाज.
Yes.
आ गया ना? गौरव will be also there.
Yes. Is it okay now, Sumit?
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello. Is the voice is okay now?
सर अभी भी काफी स्लो है लेकिन you can start sir.
Yes. Okay. Just give it to me.
Hello.
Yeah, Sumit, just give me 1 minute. I'll just sing my voice. Okay, I use laptop actually. Sumit, just give me 1 minute.
Okay sir.
that maybe PPT चाहिए.
और हड्डियां बोल सकते हैं. आपको हड्डियां वैसे बोलने की जरूरत नहीं है, काफी कुछ आप एक चीज हमें
लेगा, देख लेना कि बेटा आज से ऋषभ पक्का ही कर. उससे पढ़ाई कर दो ऑनलाइन सेमिनार तो मतलब 50 बंदे बैठे उसमें. उसने लैपटॉप खोला.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sumit, now audible? Hello?
Sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Hello? Hello? There is a problem with the voice here. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Shall I start?
Please, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Thank you, Sumit and other office bearers of the Eastern Study Circle. And I'm sorry for delay. There was some problem in the voice because we are taking. So the systems created but not checked in the morning. So I'm very sorry for that. So I start my topic today. The topic of Schedule 3 revised amendments and CARO 2020. Basically, we received a notification in February 20 for CARO 2020. CARO 2020 was to be introduced for the financial year 2019 and 20. But if I say whether it is fortunately or unfortunately, in between COVID has come and the CARO 2020 applicability was postponed for 2 years. So by this year, now this CARO 2020 is going to be introduced, is to be implemented. When I say fortunately or unfortunately, unfortunately, we all know that COVID was unfortunate. But when I say fortunately because if we go through the clauses of CARO 2020, we'll find that most of the clauses are such wherein the auditor was required to comment and to report, whereas the management was not required to report those informations in their financial statements by that time. So when we'll go through, we'll find that most of the informations and reporting which we are going to do in CARO 2020 now, by revising the Schedule 3, those informations are now first to be applied by the management or are to be disclosed by the management in the financial statement, and our duty is to check whether the disclosure made by the management in their financial statement by way of Schedule 3 is proper, is not misleading, does not contain any misstatement. So our duty is to check the disclosures made by the management in their financial statements. Earlier, the primary responsibility was casted on the auditor because management was not required to disclose, but the auditor was required to report. So fortunately, before we were asked to report on 2020, management has been asked to report in Schedule 3. So it is very fortunate for us. Just give me, I share my screen. Share my screen.
Awesome.
Friends, on 24th of March 2021, there were 4 notifications. One notification was regarding the accounting software. The companies. I request please mute your. Yeah. Yeah.
वो जो दीदी है ना मुझे तो संडे का बुधवार कर रहे हैं ना दीदी जाएंगी
Hello.
दीदी जाएंगी जैसे पूजा दीदी जाएंगी वैसे आशा दीदी जाएंगी
Am I audible?
तो 12 बजे का है तो 12 बजे
Hello. What happened? Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Am I audible? Can any person reply?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You are
Yes,
audible.
sir.
I was
Yes,
talking on 24th of March 2021. There were 4 notifications introduced by MCA and on one single day. One was regarding the accounting software to be implemented by the companies. The software which will contain the audit trail regarding the additions or deletions or alteration made in their accounts and that audit logo is created. Second was the changes in the Schedule 3. Third was changes in the audit report. And fourth was changes in the board report. So these 4 notifications have come regarding accounting software that was to be applicable after 7 days of 27th on 1st of April 2021. But as certain implementations were made by the companies, the implementation of the notification was postponed and it is further postponed. So need not be to be discussed now. Then we have Schedule 3 and audit report. Accounting maintenance I don't discuss. I discuss the changes made in the audit report. I'll request not to read the slide first because reading itself will not help in understanding. In simple words, I try to explain what is the changes in the audit report so far as this E1 to 3 clauses are concerned. This is something conduit funding. Conduit funding is suppose a investing intermediary and C company is the beneficiary. There are 3 parties to the contract. One is the investor, second is the intermediary, and third is the beneficiary. So what it says, if the investing company gives fund to intermediary and fund is subject to the condition that the intermediary shall either finance or invest or give any security or guarantee on behalf of the beneficiary.
On behalf of the beneficiary, in that situation, the funding party, investing company shall just somebody else is sharing the screen. Somebody else is sharing the screen. Is somebody else is sharing their screen? Can you see to it?
Yes, sir. Now it is visible.
Now looking, sir.
Okay.
सर ये एक्सेल शीट है सर ये.
Whose sheet is this?
Okay, sorry sir. सर किसी और ने शेयर कर दिया I believe.
Yeah.
Now okay sir. Now
That's
okay.
okay.
Yes
Yeah,
sir.
okay, it's okay.
So yes. So what I was talking about this conduit funding. In conduit funding, there are 3 parties. One is the investing party, another is the intermediary, third is the beneficiary. So what it says, if the investing party gives fund to intermediary with the condition that the intermediary shall in turn finance, loan, invest in some beneficiary, and that beneficiary is identified by the investing party. Suppose company A says to company B that I am giving fund to you and you will give fund to C. C is identified by A. In that situation, we are supposed to report that we have taken a representation from they have given such and such fund to such and such intermediary to be given to such and such beneficiary. And you will find in Schedule 3, when we will discuss, the management is also required to report in the notes whether they have given any fund to any intermediary with the condition that the fund shall be loan or invest for the benefit of beneficiaries identified by the investing party. मतलब अगर एक investing party ने एक intermediary को fund दिया to be given to some ultimate beneficiaries identified by the investor, कब हो सकता है? जब जो investing party है वो directly उस पार्टी को फंड नहीं कर सकती. Suppose I just take an example. A company cannot give loans to its directors. So company A, because it cannot give loan to its director, वो क्या करती है? वो company B को लोन दे देती है और company B in turn company A के डायरेक्टर को लोन दे देती है. तो 185 की कंप्लायंस से बचने के लिए, नॉन कंप्लायंस से बचने के लिए इनडायरेक्ट फंडिंग हुई. तो दैट इनडायरेक्ट फंडिंग इज कवर्ड अंडर दिस ऑडिट रिपोर्ट and it is covered in your notes schedule 3 also. So this is what I am talking about, the investing party. So what is required? It's very easy to take representation. Basically it requires कि आपने एक representation ले लिया मैनेजमेंट से कि मैनेजमेंट ने बताया कि to their best of their knowledge and belief जो कुछ उन्होंने नोट्स में डिस्क्लोज किया है इसके अलावा कोई ऐसा फंड नहीं है जो उन्होंने किसी इंटरमीडिएरी को दिया है. Basically this is what the management is representing. And you are saying that we have taken that representation. तो आपको जो MR लेते हैं या otherwise also you have to obtain a representation from the management. This is regarding the investing party. Then it says there can be two companies. One company can be intermediary and one company can be investing party. So a company can be intermediary also, a company can be investing company also. So you are taking another representation that the company has not received any fund from any investing company with the instruction that the company shall finance or shall loan or shall give guarantee security for ultimate beneficiaries identified by the investing party. So हम दो कंपनी की बात करते हैं. A कंपनी है इन्वेस्टिंग कंपनी, B कंपनी है इंटरमीडियरी. तो A कंपनी हमारी इन्वेस्टिंग कंपनी है, B कंपनी हमारी इंटरमीडियरी है. तो हर कंपनी से हमें एक रिप्रेजेंटेशन लेना है कि ना तो वो इंटरमीडियरी है और ना ही वो इन्वेस्टिंग कंपनी है. अगर वो इंटरमीडियरी है तो उसने किससे लोन लिया, किसको दिया. अगर वो इन्वेस्टिंग पार्टी है तो उसने किसको लोन दिया और किसके लिए दिया. तो these two representation we have to obtain from the management. And दो clauses बहुत आसान है कहना कि whether we have obtained the representation or not. representation हम ले ही लेंगे. तो representation लेना is not tough and reporting is not tough that we have obtained the representation. But third में 143(3) में वो कहता है clause rule E3 based on such audit procedures that the auditor consider reasonable and appropriate in the circumstances. तो वो कहता है कि जो audit procedures लगाए और जो कि appropriate थे circumstances में, the auditor has not come, there is nothing in the knowledge of the auditor which create doubt that the representation made by the management is in any way contain any misstatement. जो भी हमने मैनेजमेंट ने रिप्रेजेंटेशन दिया है दैट कंटेन्स एनी मिसस्टेटमेंट. तो ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स जो भी सर्कमस्टेंसेस में अप्रोप्रिएट और रीजनेबल है वो दो ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स आर टू बी अप्लाइड. सो वी हैव अ गाइडेंस नोट ऑफ आवर ICI ऑन दिस, अ वेरी वेल ड्राफ्टेड guidance note which will give us guide how to obtain the representation. Then what audit procedures can be perceived in such circumstances. I will briefly discuss those. First of all, complete my audit report amendments. इसके अलावा जो एक amendment है वो है regarding the audit, regarding the dividend, whether the dividend paid declared is in compliance of section 123. जिस कंपनी में भी dividend declare हुआ है या पे हुआ है, whether it is interim dividend or whether it is final dividend, that has to be seen that is in compliance of section 123. सिंपल प्रोविजंस हैं. एडुकेसी ऑफ प्रॉफिट्स करंट ईयर का प्रॉफिट से दे रहे हैं, एक्यूमुलेटेड प्रॉफिट से दे रहे हैं. देन कंप्लायंस ऑफ सेक्शन 73 यू हैव टू चेक बिफोर डिविडेंड इज डिक्लेयर्ड. नेक्स्ट amendment is regarding our requirement to report on the accounting software जो ऑडिट ट्रेल का लेकिन ये पोस्टपोन हो गया, तो जिसकी ऑडिटिंग भी हमारी रिपोर्ट में पॉइंट है, दैट विल आल्सो बी पोस्टपोन. सो आई ब्रीफली डिस्कस होगा जब फंडिंग किसी पार्टी ने दी है और किसी इन्वेस्टर आइडेंटिफाई किया है और उन्हीं आइडेंटिफाइड बेनिफिशियरीज को फंडिंग होती है, देन ओनली दिस प्रोविजन इज एप्लीकेबल ऑफ द कंडक्ट फंडिंग. ऑडिटर की ड्यूटी क्या है? एक तो ड्यूटी है टू ऑब्टेन दी मैनेजमेंट रिप्रेजेंटेशन कि whether the company has given any such fund or whether the company has received such fund, and if the company has received such fund, then for whose benefit the fund is given, fund is received and to whom it is given. If the company has given any fund, then to whom it is given and for whose benefit it is given. So all the details are to be given in the notes, and the auditor is required to obtain such representation and then to report whether it contains any misstatement or not. This is the auditor's duty. So there can be two opinions in our audit report, as we report everywhere. Either it can be unmodified or it can be modified. When it is unmodified when we have received the representations first. Secondly, we have satisfied that there was no misstatement, material misstatement. These two things, if you are satisfied, then it is unmodified. But if the management did not give any disclosure in the financial statement as required in Schedule 3, then it requires modified opinion. Or the auditor could not obtain the sufficient and reasonable audit evidences regarding representation, then also you are supposed to give the modified opinion. Of sufficiency and reasonableness of the audit evidence will depend upon the case to case. So what is basically, if we audit these statements, representation received from management, so what the auditor is required to do? The auditor is required to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. So we have to first understand what the auditor is required to do. Auditor की जिम्मेदारी क्या है? Auditor का प्रॉब्लम क्या है? Auditor ने देखना क्या है? Auditor ने देखना है फंडिंग हुई है क्या और उसका यूटिलाइजेशन हुआ है क्या. तो कंप्लीटनेस, when we talk of the assertion की इसकी इस ऑडिट, इस ट्रांजैक्शन के ऑडिट में assertion, ट्रांजैक्शन के ऑडिट में occurrence and completeness. Transaction has occurred or the transaction has been completely disclosed. These two assertions we are auditing. So, जब भी हम किसी ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स को अप्लाई करते हैं तो we have to first see the इसमें assertion क्या है, what assertion we are auditing. So assertion here is the funding and its utilization. And risk क्या है? Risk है completeness, that the disclosure in the financial statement is complete regarding the receipt or payment or utilization. That the risk is completeness. So we have to check the assertion regarding funding utilization and disclosure completeness. So we have to reduce our audit risk and we have to plan the audit and apply the audit procedures accordingly. तो सबसे पहले तो as we do the audit, इसमें कोई नया audit नहीं है, वही ऐसे 330, ऐसे 315, वही ऐसे 500, ऐसे 500, all assets will be applicable on these transactions also. तो हम क्या बात करते हैं कि सबसे पहले we have to check the operating effectiveness and adequacy of the internal control. कंपनी में जो भी फंडिंग कंपनी कर रही है, चाहे वो कवर्ड इस रिप्रेजेंटेशन होती है नहीं होती है, जो भी लोनिंग कंपनी कर रही है, जो भी इन्वेस्टमेंट कंपनी कर रही है, उस कंपनी का उसके ऊपर इंटरनल कंट्रोल सिस्टम क्या है फॉर गिविंग लोन, फॉर गिविंग गारंटी, फॉर गिविंग सिक्योरिटी और टू मेकिंग इन्वेस्टमेंट्स. ऑल दीज, व्हाट इज द इंटरनल कंट्रोल सिस्टम इन द कंपनी. क्या बोर्ड का रेजोल्यूशन पास होता है और उसकी सेक्शन 186 की कंप्लायंस क्या है. All those regarding internal control, we have to first document the internal control system regarding these four things: guarantee, security, loan, and investments. Then we should obtain the list of all the loans and investment guarantee and security provided by the company during the year under. हमने 21-22 का ऑडिट कर रहे हैं, 21-22 में कितने लोन दिए कंपनी ने, कितनी गारंटी दी है, कितनी सिक्योरिटी दी है, कितनी इन्वेस्टमेंट की है. Detail, we have to obtain list of all those things done. Then the register is maintained under section 186. Section 186 में register maintain होता है रजिस्टर में कंप्लीट डिटेल होती है, किसको से कहाँ इन्वेस्टमेंट किया, किसको लोन दिया, किसकी गारंटी दी, किसकी सिक्योरिटी दी, अगर किसी को लोन दिया तो उसका लोन किस पर्पस के लिए दिया गया, और अगर दिया तो उस पर्पस के लिए यूटिलाइज हुआ कि नहीं हुआ. सेक्शन 186 रिक्वायर टू मेंटेन द रजिस्टर फॉर ऑल these loans, investments, guarantee and security. So we have to check. Then we should take the agreements for all the loans given, all the loans given by the company. We have to check the agreements. उस लोन का पर्पस क्या है, whether the purpose is to give further loan, whether is the purpose is to give the loan for the business of the loanee. So we have to check all the agreements done by the company regarding the loans. So this way we are checking and making our audit procedures. Then after we obtain all these things, agreements, list, then audit sampling. Sometimes we cannot check each and every transaction. So we have to make audit sampling. Then SA 530 is applicable. We should obtain the minutes of the approving authority. अगर board का resolution है तो उसके minutes. So and also the end use certificate we should obtain from the parties to whom the loan is given. So briefly, I'll discuss the loan this audit procedure because we have to discuss so many things. Then SA 505 external confirmation, the auditor should correspond with, if you are checking the investing party, we should correspond with the intermediary, why the loan was given to the intermediary and for what purpose the intermediary has used the loan. And in case of intermediary, we should correspond with the investing party, that for what purpose the fund was given by the investing party, and also with the beneficiaries, whether the fund has been given at the behest of the investing party. So all these audit procedures are to be applied. मैं समझता हूँ ये इतनी बड़ी compliance है, और since it is a part of our main audit report section 143, ये कारो का हमारा क्वेश्चनर नहीं है, and we are reporting on the material misstatement on this particular transaction. So it needs detailed audit. So in this case, we have to document our audit file properly, that we have complied all the audit procedures before commenting on the whether the representation contains material misstatement or not. I think I skipped the slides regarding the conduit funding more. I'll share the PPT because Schedule 3 in itself is a very detailed discussion. Sumit, I believe if anybody has query regarding the conduit funding, we can take up here itself. Are you listening to me? Or should I proceed?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
If anybody has query regarding this conduit funding,
Sir, I'll ask the question in form of an example. So this conduit funding, if I properly understand, was brought in to when the ministry saw that something wrong has been done by a particularly very famous HFC. I don't want to name it. So I mean, I also observed that. So let's say in this case that HFC, or which is now an NBFC, gives loan to company A, correct? With the understanding that there will be chain of entities, it goes to company B, C, D, and E. Now, I mean, the HFC will issue a sanction letter to company A, wherein they will write all the terms and conditions are XYZ, and you have to utilize for this purpose. Now, the terms also provide for that. You provide a CS certificate that the fund has been utilized for this purpose. Now, unfortunately, company A, colludes with the auditor. It's their own auditor for one reason or other, and they give a false certificate to the NBFC. Now, in this case, what will be the responsibility of the auditor? Because see, if he relies on the certificate, then it says it has been utilized for that particular purpose. But next year, if the auditor is a bit diligent and he takes up the balance sheet of the company, that is company A, next year, or because it's a fraud company, it may not even file a balance sheet for during the next year, or may take 2-3 years. So in this scenario, what checks auditor should exercise?
So here they are, your query is, we have to see what is required in so far as funding is concerned. Basically, we have to see whether there is any contravention of any act. So far as suppose company A gives fund to company B.
Yes, sir.
In turn, and with the condition that company we will give this fund to company C or C, D, E or F, G, so many parties. So whether why company A gave fund to B to be given to C, D, E, F, whether the company A could not give otherwise. So there could be non-compliance of the Companies Act indirectly, or non-compliance of FEMA, or non-compliance of the PMLA. Basically, these three things they require to know whether such conduit funding is to avoid the violation of FEMA, Companies Act or PMLA. Whether it is covered under PMLA. Suppose a foreign company, because they cannot do any NBFC business in India, they give fund to one company in India, and that company in turn gives to NBFC in India, and all the parties to whom the NBFC finance are selected and identified by company, basically by the foreign entity. So it is somewhere violation of the FEMA. So we have to suppose company A is giving fund to B and company B is giving to C. That if that is given in the notes that the company A gave fund to B to be given to C, and that is given in the Schedule 3, is disclosed in the Schedule 3, and it is not in any way contravening any provision of the law. ऐसा नहीं है ना कंपनी ए बी को देती है बी सी को देती है उसमें कोई लॉ का कंट्रावेंशन हो रहा है. Law का कंट्रावेंशन may not be there, but if there is a contravention of law, then in Schedule 3 if you will find there is one more disclosure on the part of the management to disclose that such funding, there was no contravention of Companies Act, FEMA and PMLA. This is also to be disclosed by the management in the notes itself. So agar conduit funding in itself is not illegal otherwise. So you have to see whether the end use, which you are saying the company A gave fund to company B and company B misused it. It has not used for the purpose for which it should have been used by the management. For the purpose for which it was given and for the purpose for which it has been used. You will otherwise find in Section 186. Section 186 requires wherever there is a loaning under Section 186, in all loans, the management is required to disclose in the notes for what purposes the loans are given. When you are saying the purposes for the loan given, in itself, it is inherent requirement that utilization should also be disclosed. Because given purpose means given for a particular purpose, and if not used for the purpose, then writing the purpose for which it is given is not correct. So utilization is very important.
Okay. So just one more question, because very simple.
Yes.
So let's say there is an NBFC. NBFC has given loan to company A. The transaction is genuine. Now company A is in financial troubles. It cannot, which is happening. This example is real example, and it is happening throughout the country. So company A is a genuine company. It is unable to service the loan. Now to protect the asset from being an NPA, company A this is important that company A identifies company B. The company B will buy assets from company A and in turn will get loan from NBFC to buy those assets. So in this case, sir, what is since company B has been identified by company A, correct? But NBFC will issue a sanction letter to company B. So can I say that company B has been identified by the NBFC itself, and thus the transaction becomes reportable? And the other catch over here is that in the sanction letter issued to company B, it will be clearly written that, okay, I am giving you loan for buying asset from company A. So that is very much visible and clear. So now whether that transaction will fall into this particular clause E, F.
Yeah. You are saying that company A has given, company A is NBFC. I try to understand. Yes. Company A is NBFC.
No, company A is not an NBFC. NBFC in our example.
NBFC is given fund to company A.
Yes, sir.
company A is in problem, so company A identified company B,
Yes.
and company B is buying from asset from company A,
Yes.
for which NBFC is further financing for the company A. NBFC is further financing company B to
Yes.
buy the asset from the company A,
Huh.
and
And whatever fund company A will receive will, it will clear its loan account with company interest payment
NBFC.
with NBFC. Yes.
NBFC no.
Yes.
So that company A has identified B, and B NBFC is funding B basically.
Yes.
But NBFC is funding B, but the B is not identified by NBFC.
But sir, in this example, can an auditor say that because sanction letter has been issued by you to B, so how can you say that B has not been identified by NBFC? That's the question. Because sanction letter तो रहेगा और sanction letter में ये भी लिखा रहेगा कि आप A से asset खरीदेंगे और ये मैं आपको फाइनेंस कर रहा हूँ.
आप ए से एसेट खरीदेंगे और मतलब मींस आप ये कहना चाहते हैं कि एनबीएफसी ने बेसिकली उसको आइडेंटिफाई किया कि आप ए से एसेट खरीद लीजिए, जिससे आप ए की पेमेंट कर दोगे और ए को पेमेंट करने के लिए पैसे भी मैं ही दे रहा हूँ बी को.
हाँ सर.
मतलब बेसिकली
हुआ क्या था कि
पैसे दे
ट्रांजैक्शन
रही है.
हाँ सर, नहीं क्वेश्चन ये है कि डी जो कंपनी है वो है तो एक ही कंपनी, तो आइडेंटिफाई तो ए नहीं करा, एनबीएफसी मार्केट में ढूंढने तो गई नहीं, मगर जैसे ही सैंक्शन लेटर दे दिया तो क्या मैं ये बोल सकता हूँ कि एनबीएफसी नहीं उसको आइडेंटिफाई करा?
मैं आपकी बात पे आ रहा हूँ, एक मिनट. बेसिकली ये कहता है कि जो इन्वेस्टिंग पार्टी है उसने आइडेंटिफाई किया, इंटरमीडिएरी को पैसा दिया टू बी गिवन टू द अल्टीमेट बेनिफिशियरी. अल्टीमेट बेनिफिशियरी तो ए हो गया.
करेक्ट.
इस ट्रांजैक्शन का जो बेनिफिशियरी है वो ए है, ठीक है. बी इज इंटरमीडिएरी, तो बी को आइडेंटिफाई या तो ए ने किया या एनबीएफसी ने किया, ठीक है. एनबीएफसी ने किया तो एनबीएफसी इन्वेस्टिंग पार्टी है और बी इंटरमीडिएरी है, बेनिफिशियरी तो ए. यस, बेसिकली जो बेनिफिशियरी है वो ए है. हम बात कर रहे हैं कि अल्टीमेट बेनिफिशियरी को किसने आइडेंटिफाई किया. अल्टीमेट बेनिफिशियरी को किसने आइडेंटिफाई किया? ए इज द बेनिफिशियरी. ए को तो किसने आइडेंटिफाई किया ट्रांजैक्शन में? ए वाज देयर इटसेल्फ.
Yes. Yeah, I'm getting you, sir.
So it will not be covered under this transaction.
Okay. Very valid.
I have tried to give some insight about this amendment in the audit report. I now start my topic of Schedule 3, which was the topic of today. So Schedule 3 has basically 3 divisions: Division 1, Division 2, and Division 3. Division 1 is applicable on all companies on which accounting standard rules 2006 are applicable. Division 2 on which Indias are applicable, and Division 3 NBFCs on which Indias are applicable. So there are 3 divisions. तो जो discussion है Division 1 में जो amendments हैं, there are almost 10 changes and 25 additional disclosures required in Division 1, and all the amendments and changes, disclosure, additional requirements which are applicable in Division 1 are applicable on Division 2 and Division 3 as well. And Division 2 itself has 3 additional changes, additions, and Division 3 has 1 amendment. We will concentrate about discussion on Division 1. Basically, Division 1 में जो changes आए हैं, जो additional disclosures आए हैं, there are almost 25 additional disclosures. So I thought to divide those changes, thinking of the purpose, what could be the purpose of the authorities to bring those additional disclosures. तो मैंने अपने एक सोच के हिसाब से इसको डिवाइड किया है. तो कुछ चेंजेस ऐसे हैं जो कि फाइनेंशियल एनालिसिस में हेल्प करते हैं. क्या होता है कि एक जो रीडर ऑफ द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट है, जिसने कंपनी से डील करना है या इन्वेस्ट करना है, उसको कंपनी के फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट को एनालाइज करना होता है. तो जो एनालिसिस को करना चाहिए वो उसको फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट में ही मिल जाए, ऐसी कोशिश की गई. जैसे रेशियो एनालिसिस सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट होता है. रेशियोज, अगर हम कोई भी किसी कंपनी की बैलेंस शीट को एनालाइज करेंगे, सबसे पहले हम देखेंगे रेशियोज क्या है. तो रेशियोज सारे के सारे आपको फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट के नोट्स में मिल जाएंगे. सेकंड होता है एजिंग, कि उसके रिसीवर्स कितने पुराने हैं, उसके पेवर्स कितने पुराने हैं. तो तो 4 तरीके की एजिंग है, पेपर्स की एजिंग, रिसीवर्स की एजिंग, कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस की एजिंग और इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स की एजिंग। तो ये 5 चेंजेस ऐसे हैं जो कि आई बिलीव वर ब्रॉट इन टू इनेबल बेटर अंडरस्टैंडिंग एंड और बेटर एनालिसिस ऑफ द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट। फिर उसके बाद वो डिस्क्लोजर्स हैं जो उन्हीं कंपनीज पे एप्लीकेबल होंगे जिनकी दोज बोरिंग फ्रॉम द बैंक्स और फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशंस। अदर कंपनीज पे वो अदरवाइज एप्लीकेबल नहीं होंगे, दो वी हैव टू गिव द नोट शेड्यूल 3 में regarding those disclosures also, but those may not be applicable on all companies. Like details of usage of borrowings, willful defaulter और quarterly statement submitted, और एक और है charges registered जो मैं आगे बताऊंगा। 4 ऐसे डिस्क्लोजर्स हैं जो उन्हीं कंपनीज पे एप्लीकेबल हो जिन्होंने बैंक से फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशन से फंडिंग की है, बोरिंग किया हुआ है। फिर वो डिस्क्लोजर्स हैं जो कि बिनामी ट्रांजैक्शंस को पर्टेन करते हैं, whether the company has any बिनामी transaction, like details of बिनामी property held by the company, and second is utilization of borrowed funds and share premium। ये वही है जो हमने कंड्यूट फंडिंग पढ़ा है। कंड्यूट फंडिंग की जो डिस्क्लोजर है, यूटिलाइजेशन ऑफ borrowed funds and share premium by the company by way of loaning, investing to intermediary। Third is whether the land building is not held in the name of the company। Fourth, compliance of the number of layers of the companies। ये 4 डिस्क्लोजर ऐसे हैं जो कि बिनामी ट्रांजैक्शन की बात करते हैं। Then इसके बाद है अदर डिस्क्लोजर्स, लोन्स or advance in the nature of loan given to promoters, directors, relatives, KMPs. Then whether the PP, property, plant and equipment is revalued, whether it is revalued, whether it is done by the registered valuer, or whether the changes in the valuation is 10% or more. Then CSR disclosures and undisclosed income disclosures. These are the other disclosures. Apart from that, we have additional regulatory informations. Charges I have discussed, relationship with stock of companies, compliance with the approved scheme arrangements, and details of cryptocurrency and virtual currency. These are the major disclosures I have discussed briefly. Now we will discuss in detail. जितना टाइम जिसको चाहिएगा उतना टाइम लगाएंगे। Apart from the disclosures, there are changes in the schedule 3. एक तो major change है, all the financial statements start to be round off। पहले जो प्रोविजन कहता था वो कहता था द कंपनी में राउंड ऑफ द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट इफ इट डीम्स फिट, इफ इट रिक्वायर्स, इफ इट लाइक्स, बट नाउ इट कंपनी शैल राउंड ऑफ द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स। ये इंडिया में पहले मस्ट था, नाउ इट इज फॉर ऑल दी फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स। तो जो भी फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट आ जाएंगी उसमें जो फिगर्स होंगे वो राउंड ऑफ में जाएंगे, राउंडिंग ऑफ टू हंड्रेड्स और थाउजेंड्स और लैक्स और मिलियंस और decimal thereof. So we have to see what is good for the understanding of the financial statement of a particular entity. Accordingly, we have to round off. Shareholding of the promoters are to be given. Security deposits जो हम disclose करते थे other long term loans and advances में, now loans and advances की जगह वो जाएंगे non current assets में, security deposits. That disclosure will get changed. Current maturities of long-term debt we were disclosing in the current liabilities. Now those not to be disclosed in the current liability, those to be disclosed in short-term borrowings. ये भी एक welcome disclosure है क्योंकि borrowings are now divided into 2 parts only, long-term borrowings and short-term borrowings. It will not go anywhere like current liabilities. Tangible assets का word के लिए जो word use होगा property, plant and equipment होगा क्योंकि इंडेस आपका जो AS10 है उसका नाम भी प्रॉपर्टी प्लांट एंड इक्विपमेंट हो गया है, और प्रॉपर्टी प्लांट एंड इक्विपमेंट के बाद इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स वर्ड यूज होगा। नाउ इट द नेम विल बिकम्स प्रॉपर्टी प्लांट इक्विपमेंट एंड इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स। तो जो हम वर्ड यूज करेंगे ये यूज करेंगे, और उसके नीचे प्रॉपर्टी प्लांट एंड इक्विपमेंट जो हम डिटेल देते हैं उसमें इंटेंजिबल एसेट और आ जाएगा। दीज आर 5 चेंजेस। तो जो प्रमोटर्स की होल्डिंग है दैट इज टू बी डिस्क्लोज्ड, एंड percentage change from the preceding year also to be disclosed, name person wise all the promoters details। अभी हम उसकी डिटेल अपनी एनुअल रिटर्न में देते हैं, that detail is to be further given here in schedule 3 also। अगर allotment promoters को during the year ही हुआ है तो अगर during the year में from the date of allotment अगर कोई change आया तो that is to be treated as change during the year, and accordingly that percentage change to be given। Now we come to the aging part. First, aging of trade payables. इसमें बेसिकली जो शेड्यूल 3 का अमेंडमेंट है, दैट रिक्वायर्स टू बी गिवन अंडर करंट लायबिलिटीज, बिकॉज ट्रेड पेबल्स हम करंट लायबिलिटीज में भी देते हैं, नॉन करंट में भी देते हैं. ट्रेड पेबल्स कैन बी करंट, ट्रेड पेबल्स कैन बी नॉन करंट. सो दिस bifurcation aging is to be given, or schedule 3 requires is to be given only for the trade payables which are there in the current, not in the non current. So aging आप देते हैं MSME, non MSME. अब देना MSME, non MSME, disputed MSME, undisputed MSME. If there is any trade payable which is disputed, that has to be separately given. और एजिंग है 1 साल से कम के कितने हैं, 1 से 2 साल के कितने हैं, 2 से 3 साल से कितने हैं, और 3 साल से ज्यादा के कितने हैं. मतलब किसी भी रीडर ऑफ द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट पता चल जाए whether the company is defaulting in the payment to the trade payables, and if it is defaulting, so then since how long that payments of the trade payables are outstanding. तो फाइनेंशियल प्रॉब्लम कंपनी की ऑन द फेस ऑफ द बैलेंस शीट नजर आ जाएगी by reading the balance sheet. If due date is not given, then date of transaction is to be treated as the due date. Then not only the trade amount given in the trade payables, any unbilled dues, if you are given in unbilled dues, that is also to be disclosed separately and in the same format. So trade payables are to be given in the format which is given. Likewise, trade receivables, disputed, undisputed, both considered good, not considered good, considered doubtful. This bifurcation is to be given in the same way. पहले हम देते थे 6 months or more than 6 months. So 6 months will continue as we were giving. More than 6 months will be classified as we were classifying the trade payables. So this classification is required. And in trade payables, both trade payables given in the current as well as trade payables, trade receivables given in the non-current, both are to be classified. Secondly, अगर हम अपना गाइडेंस नोट पढ़ेंगे तो गाइडेंस नोट कहता है कि अगर ट्रेड पेबल्स का जैसे हम करंट नॉन करंट ट्रेड पेबल्स का बाइफरकेशन कर रहे हैं, सेम वे वी शुड गिव द क्लासिफिकेशन फॉर द ट्रेड पेबल्स आल्सो. दिस इज व्हाट द गाइडेंस नोट इज सेइंग. सो फार एज शेड्यूल 3 सेज, शेड्यूल 3 में ओनली करंट लायबिलिटी, करंट ट्रेड पेबल्स की क्लासिफिकेशन का अमेंडमेंट है. देन रिगार्डिंग द कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस, ये एक ऐसा पार्ट है कि नॉर्मली कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस बहुत सारी कंपनीज में बहुत सालों से एज इट इज चले आते हैं. वो कब शुरू हुआ था, कब तक खत्म होना था, किसी को नहीं पता. कितना काम उसमें होगा ये नहीं पता, और कब उसमें कितना खर्चा हुआ, क्यों हुआ, उसके ऊपर काफी हद तक हमारी शेड्यूल 3 में जो प्रेजेंटेशन है, डिस्क्लोजर है, इनसफिशिएंट है. क्यों? हम क्या कहते हैं, हम कहते हैं इम्पेयरमेंट ऑफ द एसेट्स. इंपेयरमेंट के अंदर हम इंपेयरमेंट की बात करते हैं तो पीपीई को हम देखते हैं, प्रॉपर्टी प्लांट एंड इक्विपमेंट को देखते हैं, क्योंकि डेप्रिसिएशन इज प्रोवाइडिंग ऑन दी प्रॉपर्टी प्लांट एंड इक्विपमेंट. कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस का कोई डेप्रिसिएशन भी नहीं लगता. आपको नहीं पता कि जो कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस शुरू हुआ था, सपोज एक मशीनरी का कंस्ट्रक्शन शुरू हुआ 3 साल पहले, और वो अब स्टिल दैट इज स्टिल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस. तो ये भी जरूरी नहीं है 3 साल बाद वो मशीनरी उस यूज की रह पाएगी जिसका काम पूरा नहीं हुआ, तो क्या उसका इंप्लीमेंट हुआ कि नहीं हुआ. सो एक डिटेल्ड डिस्क्लोजर कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस का एजिंग के साथ मांगा. उसमें दो, उसको पहले डिवाइड किया, ऑल दोज प्रोजेक्ट्स विच आर इन प्रोग्रेस एंड दोज प्रोजेक्ट विच आर टेम्परेरी सस्पेंडेड, which are temporarily suspended construction, and the construction is stayed by the code somewhere, or there is some other problem and the construction is stopped, and if it is stopped, that details to be separately given. So जितने भी capital work in progress है, जो in progress है 1 year, 1 to 2 years, 2 to 3 years, more than 3 years, all those details are to be furnished in detailed format. Secondly, what it requires, कि आपको देखना है एज एन ऑडिटर, आपकी जिम्मेदारी इसमें रिगार्डिंग कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस बहुत ज्यादा है. आपको ये देखना है कि कितने प्रोजेक्ट्स कंपनी के चल रहे हैं जो कि इन प्रोग्रेस है. प्रोजेक्ट वाइज डिटेल्स यू हैव टू ऑब्टेन. उसमें आपको देखना with the original plan, overall with the original plan in terms of in terms of money, in terms of time. Suppose एक प्रोजेक्ट 1 ईयर 1 साल में कंप्लीट होना था तो वो नहीं हुआ, तो दैट इज ओवररन इन टाइम. सपोज एक प्रोजेक्ट में एक एस्टिमेशन जो था कंपनी का वो 1 CR था, बट इट हैज ऑलरेडी एक्सीडेड 1 CR, so it is overrun because of money. It exceeded the estimation of the investment, the expenditure. So all those projects which those have overrun in terms of money or in terms of their time, उसकी प्रोजेक्ट वाइज डिटेल देनी है और ये डिटेल देना है कि वो प्रोजेक्ट आगे कितने टाइम में कंप्लीट हो जाएगा. 1 साल में कंप्लीट हो जाएगा, 1 से 2 साल में कंप्लीट हो जाएगा, 2 से 3 साल में कंप्लीट हो जाएगा, 3 साल से ज्यादा में कंप्लीट होगा. ऑल दोज डिटेल्स प्रोजेक्ट वाइज इज टू बी गिवन. So this is tangible assets in development, means capital work in progress of intangible assets. Same details have to be given, aging has to be given. Then you have the ratio analysis. डिस्कस करने की इसमें कोई रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है. 11 रेशियो है. करंट रेशियो, डेट इक्विटी रेशियो, डेट सर्विस कवरेज रेशियो, सारी रेशियो सारे चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स को पता है. वी आर ऑल फाइनेंशियल कंसल्टेंट आल्सो, और जो लोग बैंक फाइनेंस में डील करते हैं उनको तो अच्छे से पता है. और अदरवाइज आल्सो शेड्यूल 3 में देने के अलावा मैं हमेशा बात करता हूँ कि दिस रेशियो एनालिसिस इज टू बी गिवन बाय द मैनेजमेंट इन शेड्यूल 3. But as an auditor, this analysis is very, very important for our audit purpose. I always say that while planning the audit, SA 200 clearly requires us to plan the audit. And while planning an audit and making a program of an audit, analysis of the risk. This ratio analysis helps us a lot in analyzing our risk assessment procedure. So where the risk is. Suppose current ratio is less than 1. If current ratio is less than 1, going concern is definitely at risk. If debt equity ratio is rising, again we can perceive that the company is in problem. If suppose inventory ratio is rising, we can feel that there can be some older inventory or some inventory which is not of use, so valuation of the inventory can be at risk. If the trade receivables ratio is rising, there can be old trade receivables, then again we can have problem with the trade receivables. So all these ratios help us the areas where we should plan our audit, where we should focus more while doing the audit. So this ratio analysis to be given by the management, but while planning the audit we have to first take these ratios as one of the major indicator where to give more attention while planning the audit. Then disclosures regarding the company where those have taken funds from the banks or financial institutions. The quarterly statement which institutions when they take loan from the lend against the current assets, बहुत सारे पॉइंट्स ऐसे
लगा रखा है कानों में.
बहुत सारे
ब्लूटूथ.
एक्सक्यूज मी,
नहीं रहा. अच्छा, कोई नहीं, कर लूंगी.
बहुत सारे पॉइंट्स ऐसे हैं जो कारो में भी है और शेड्यूल 3 में भी है. तो अभी मैं शेड्यूल 3 में कारो के वो पॉइंट साथ साथ डिस्कस कर लेंगे, जो कि हम कारो डिस्कस करेंगे तो उनको हम स्किप कर पाएंगे. दोनों को 2 बार डिस्कस करेंगे तो it will be more lengthy project. So ये जो quarterly statement borrower देता है to the bankers. So schedule 3 में requirement है, the management will give the note that the quarterly statement which was submitted to the bankers are in agreement with the books of accounts. If that is not in agreement with the books of accounts, then the reconciliation of the differences along with the reasons why the difference is there. So this is to be given by the management in the schedule 3, and CARO 2020 requires the auditor to check whether this disclosure is perfect. There is no misstatement so far as this disclosure is concerned, and accordingly in CARO 2020 we are reporting. So the work is done by the management. Earlier we were supposed to obtain the statement from the company and to check whether the statement given to the bankers are as per the books of accounts or not. Next point is whether the fund obtained by the company, borrowings made by the company for the banks or financial institutions has been used for the purpose for which it has been obtained. तो ये भी रिपोर्टिंग जो कि पहले भी हमें कारों में देनी होती थी कि हम बात करते हैं वहां सिर्फ बात करते हैं हम टर्म लोन की कारों में, whether the term loan has been used for the purpose for which it has been obtained. अभी तक हमारा जो रिपोर्टिंग थी और कारों की यही थी कि whether it has been used for the purpose for which it has been obtained. Now the reporting is in Schedule 3 as well as CARO. If it is not used for that particular purpose, then where it has been used, that is also to be reported. If it suppose the fund has been taken and the fund has been invested in shares, equity shares of some other company, or the fund has been given as a loan, or wherever the fund is transferred, if it is not used for the purpose, that purpose has to be given in the Schedule 3 as well as in CARO 2020 also. Thirdly, whether the company is a willful defaulter. Company को तो पता है whether the company is a willful defaulter or not. So accordingly, company will disclose in the Schedule 3 whether the company is a willful defaulter. If the company is a willful defaulter, then the date of declaration and the details of default amount and nature of default. That is to be given in the Schedule 3. And as an auditor, in the CARO 2020, we have to report whether the company is a willful defaulter. So the only way to know whether the company is a willful defaulter or not is from the company, or if while auditing we find the company is a defaulter to any bank or to any lender, we should correspond with that particular lender whether the company is a willful defaulter. There are only two ways. No other way to audit whether the company is a willful defaulter. So we have to rely what the statement the company is given. So we should obtain in the MR itself. The details of charges are satisfaction not filed by the company beyond or a pending for filing beyond the statutory period. If such a default is there, that detail and with reason. एक मिनट के लिए हम चार्जेस को डिस्कस कर लेते हैं. What is the statutory period? Basically, charge registration, you have period of 30 days. Within 30 days, you have to file the charge. Suppose you fail to file within 30 days, then the statute gives another 30 days by additional fees, like any other document we file in the case of a company. In 60 days, we can file with the additional fees. Suppose if we fail in 60 days also, then the statute gives another 60 days to file the charge along with the ad valorem fee. And that fee is linked with the amount of the finance. So in 120 days, the charge can be filed by a company. If it is not filed within 120 days, then in law, there is no way to file the charge. So in my view, statutory period for while reporting here is 120 days. If the charge is not filed within 120 days, then it has to be disclosed in Schedule 3.
Sir, one question on this charge.
Yes,
charge, sir, जो charge रहेगा, suppose it's the third party charge, correct? So, I mean, so let's say the NBFC is given one to company A, and company A has mortgaged the property or was required to mortgage the property of company B. So यहाँ पे अगर default रहेगा तो company B को disclose करना पड़ेगा, correct?
Yes. जिसकी property charged है. Charge तो basically charge is on the asset of the company.
Yeah.
Company A की property पे कोई charge ही नहीं है.
Correct.
So company A is not required to file the charge.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, certain provisions relating to Benami properties. Details of Benami property held by the company. So if there is any proceeding pending or initiated against the company under the Benami Transaction Prohibition Act, then the company shall disclose the details. So first of all, अगर कोई प्रोसीडिंग इनिशिएट हो जाएगी या पेंडिंग होगी, then only the company shall disclose in Schedule 3. So requirements is to disclose the details of the property which is under question, which the company hold, then when it was acquired, उसकी अमाउंट क्या है, उसके बेनिफिशियरी कौन है, प्रॉपर्टी बुक्स में डिस्क्लोज है कि नहीं है, डिस्क्लोज है तो वेयर इट इज डिस्क्लोज, अगर बुक्स में नहीं है तो व्हाई इट इज नॉट गिवन, दैट फैक्ट हैज टू बी स्टेटेड. सो ऑल द डिटेल्स आर टू बी गिवन बाय द कंपनी रिगार्डिंग बेनामी प्रॉपर्टी हेल्ड बाय द कंपनी. इसका डिस्क्लोजर भी हमारे को शेड्यूल कारो 2020 में देना है, and that disclosure is also based on the disclosure made by the management. Otherwise, the auditor may not know regarding the benami property. So that's why I was discussing कि अगर कारो 2020 पहले आ जाता, शेड्यूल 3 बाद में आता, तो reporting under कारो 2020 was very difficult for the auditor. Then utilization of the borrowed funds I have detailed in discussion. This is conduit funding. अगर कंड्यूट फंडिंग है तो शेड्यूल 3 में दोनों डिस्क्लोजर मैनेजमेंट ने करने, whether the company has given the fund or whether the company has received the fund as a conduit investor or as a conduit intermediary. Management in Schedule 3.
सर उसमें एक क्वेश्चन है सर, बेनामी में हमें डिटेल ऑफ बेनिफिशियरी देना है सर. वो अगर प्रोसीडिंग्स चल रही हैं तो डिपार्टमेंट तो हमेशा एलिज करेगा कि बेनिफिशियरी कोई और है, और कंपनी हमेशा कहेगी कि बेनामी नहीं है. तो हाउ कैन ऑडिटर कम इनटू दैट प्लेस जो डिसाइड करके बता पाएगा कि बेनिफिशियरी इसमें कौन है कौन नहीं है?
देखिए, ये डिस्क्लोजर तो मैनेजमेंट ने करना है, ठीक है. दिस इज नॉट टू बी डन बाय द ऑडिटर, ठीक है. हमें जो कारो 2020 में देना है उसमें ये देना है whether any proceeding is pending or initiated by the company or not.
Okay.
So far as the Benami Property Act. ये सारी डिटेल्स हम कारो में नहीं देनी. कारों में तो देना whether any proceeding initiative or pending against the company. तो वो तो होगी तो हमें डिस्क्लोज करना ही है.
अच्छा, ठीक है सर. ओके.
टाइटल डीड्स ऑफ ह्यूमन प्रॉपर्टी नॉट हेल्ड इन द नेम ऑफ द कंपनी. पहले हम कारो 2016 में भी रिपोर्ट करते थे, सेम वे कारो 2020 में है कि जो भी टाइटल डीड्स ह्यूमन प्रॉपर्टीज की जो कंपनी के नाम में नहीं है, अपार्ट फ्रॉम दोज लीज डीड्स, लीज होल्ड प्रॉपर्टी फॉर व्हिच लीज इज प्रॉपर्ली एग्जीक्यूटेड, वो सारी इसमें आ जाएंगी. ये पहले भी था, ये फॉर्मेट, इसका एक फॉर्मेट प्रोवाइड कर दिया एमसीए ने. सेम फॉर्मेट इज देयर इन द शेड्यूल 3 एंड सेम फॉर्मेट इज देयर इन कारो 2020. सो ये डिस्क्लोजर शेड्यूल 3 में भी हो जाएगा, ये सेम डिस्क्लोजर कारो 2020 में भी हो जाएगा. इसमें कहते हैं टाइटल डीड्स अगर कंपनी के नाम में नहीं है तो किसके नाम में, क्या वो प्रमोटर है, क्या वो डायरेक्टर है, या रिलेटिव है प्रमोटर या डायरेक्टर का, एम्प्लॉई है प्रमोटर डायरेक्टर का, दो डिटेल्स, कब से प्रॉपर्टी खरीदी है, और रीजन व्हाई द इट इज नॉट held in the name of the company, cannot be registered in the name of the company, then it may be registered in the name of a director. So all those, whether if it is not in the name of the company, then why it is not in the name of the company, और वो प्रॉपर्टी बैलेंस शीट में कहाँ डिस्क्लोज्ड है, प्रॉपर्टी प्लांट एंड इक्विपमेंट में, इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी में है, या रिटायर्ड फ्रॉम एक्टिव हेल्ड फॉर सेल जिसको हम कहते हैं उसमें है, या कहीं और है, वो भी है, उसको हमें रेफरेंस देना है कहाँ पर वो डिस्क्लोज्ड है. इट विल नॉट इंक्लूड द इन्वेंटरी प्रॉपर्टी इन इन्वेंटरी केस इन द केस ऑफ बिल्डर. Then compliance of two layers of the layers of company, as we all know that there cannot be not more than two layers of subsidiaries. Suppose company A has subsidiary B, then B can have subsidiary C. C cannot have subsidiary as D as per law. Section 186 clearly states this is restriction of the number of subsidiary a company can have. उसमें exceptions हैं, उसकी डिटेल में नहीं जाएंगे. That you may all know. If there is a contravention, if there are more than two layers, then the details are to be provided. This is also Schedule 3 requirement, but it is not there in the CARO. Relationship with the stock of companies. ये ऐसा disclosure है which looks very easy to disclose but very tough to disclose. क्योंकि it asks any transaction by the company or with the company by a company which is stock of, चाहे वो कंपनी ने किसी स्टॉक ऑफ कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट किया हो या किसी स्टॉक ऑफ कंपनी ने कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट किया हो. कोई शेयर होल्डर अगर कंपनी का है और वो स्टॉक ऑफ है, कोई बॉडी का कोई कंपनी है शेयर होल्डर एंड दैट कंपनी इज स्टॉक ऑफ, तो दैट डिटेल इज टू बी गिवन. कोई रिसीवेबल है ट्रेड हमारा कंपनी का which is a stock of company that it is, या कोई payable है, कोई लोन दिया है, कोई लोन लिया है, any transaction that detail of with the stock of company details is to be given. तो कितना बैलेंस आउटस्टैंडिंग है और स्टॉक ऑफ कंपनी से कंपनी का क्या रिलेशन है, that relationship has to be given. So this is a very important disclosure in Schedule 3, and wherever there is a disclosure in Schedule 3, हमारी audit requirement उतनी बढ़ जाती है. So we are also supposed to see whether the disclosure is perfect, there is no misstatement. So we have to see the system in the company to check with the parties wherever they were dealing with the companies, whether the company is a stock of or not. We have to check the system in place with the company, and also we should make a sample. Again, 530 is very important. We should make a sample and test check some of the companies disclosed by the non-disclosed by the management in the Schedule 3. Other companies with which company has the balances, a few we should check. This is to document our audit file. Complying with approved risk management, कोई जब भी applicable जब merger और demerger होगा, उसकी scheme है, उसकी accounting है, whether accounting is done according to that or not. Then SBN, we all know disclosure वो हट गया है, उसकी requirement थी नहीं अब. Then disclosure, I come to other disclosures. Other disclosure में एक disclosure loan or advance in the nature of loan given to promoters, directors, KMPs and related parties. इन चार लोगों को loans और advance in the nature of loan दिए. कौन से loan? जो repayable on demand हो या जिनमें repayment terms specify ना की हो. Repayment terms specify ना की हो, repayable on demand हो. इन चार लोगों को लोन दिए तो उसकी डिटेल शेड्यूल 3 में मांगी है कि प्रमोटर को कितने ऐसे लोन दिए, रिपेबल ऑन डिमांड, डायरेक्टर को कितने दिए, केएमपीस को कितने दिए, रिलेटेड पार्टीज को कितने दिए, और वो जो लोन है वो टोटल लोन से एडवांसेस का कितना परसेंट है. सो दिस डिटेल इज गिवन इन दी शेड्यूल 3. इसका जो लोन से एडवांसेस का डिस्क्लोजर जो हमारे कारो 2020 में, दैट इज वेरी डिटेल्ड डिस्क्लोजर दैट वी डिस्कस इन कारो इटसेल्फ. पीपी में दो डिस्क्लोजर है शेड्यूल 3 में. एक तो है कि whether the PP has been revalued, if the revaluation is done, whether it has been done by the registered valuer or not, that detail is still given. And if due to revaluation there is a change 10% or more in the value, in aggregate value in each class of PP, then that has to be given. Change if the change is 10% or more. The same requirement is in the CARO also. With this, we complete the balance sheet disclosures. Now I come to the disclosures, additional disclosures so far as the income side is profit and loss is concerned. Profit and loss में जो हम लिखते हैं total revenue अभी, उसका nomenclature होगा total income, not total revenue. That word has to be changed. Then another addition is the Section 8 company के केस में grants और donations को receipt को कहाँ दिखाना था, that was not provided in earlier Schedule 3. So that grants and donations का additional disclosure उसमें provide होगा. That is to ease out the disclosure by Section 8 companies. Then another disclosure जो बहुत important आया, that is regarding the undisclosed income. If during the course of any tax assessments, it says any tax assessment under Income Tax Assess Act, the company has made any surrender or disclosure, whether that transaction, if it was not reported in earlier year in the books of accounts, whether the same has been properly recorded in the books of accounts during the year. अगर कोई भी हमने कंपनी ने सरेंडर किया या डिस्क्लोजर किया इन टैक्स असेसमेंट, तो अगर वो ट्रांजैक्शन अर्लियर किसी ईयर में डिस्क्लोज नहीं किया है तो उसको इस साल में बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट में डिस्क्लोज करना है. दैट इज द रिक्वायरमेंट एंड दैट डिटेल इज टू बी गिवन इन द कारो. इसका हमारे गाइडेंस नोट में प्रॉपर फॉर्मेट है. दैट फॉर्मेट कैन बी यूज्ड. तो same reporting we are supposed to do in CARO also, whether the company has properly disclosed the undisclosed income which was surrendered in by the company, and this surrender will not cover the surrender made under disclosure scheme by the act. कोई भी immunity जैसे हमारा विवाद से विश्वास है, उसमें कोई भी सरेंडर किया, that will not be covered under this scheme, under this disclosure. Then CSR disclosure. CSR, as we all know, 22 जनवरी में जो नोटिफिकेशन आया, उसके बाद CSR regime बदल गया. Before 22 January, the company, if could not spend, was only required to disclose that the company could not spend the money as required in CSR in its board report or on its website, and also the reasons why the company could not spend the money as required. So that was only the requirement was merely to disclose in case of non-expenditure of the CSR. But after 22 January, this regime has changed. Rather, I say Section 135(5) and Section 135(6), which were amended earlier, but were not notified to be, were not made applicable, were made applicable from 22 January 2021. So I briefly discuss. After 22 January, the Act requires now that the company has to spend the CSR, which the company is required to spend during the financial year. If the company fails to spend that money, then after the closure of the financial year, up say 31st of March, within 6 months, the company has to deposit that money in a specified fund, unspent CSR fund. So within 6 months, that amount has to be deposited. ये 21 में applicable था, तो 21 में already 21st 30th September 21 तक 21 का डिपॉजिट किया होगा और 22 का नेक्स्ट 30th September तक डिपॉजिट करना है. So this was the requirement that now after 31st March it cannot be spent on CSR. It has to be deposited in unspent CSR fund. But if the company has an ongoing project, then there was a relaxation that the company has to deposit that money within 30 days of the close of the financial year, means by 30th April, in a separate bank account, and can spend that fund within 3 years on that ongoing fund. So damage given is 3 years. If suppose the fund is not used within 3 years, then within 30 days after the 3 years, that amount is required to be deposited in unspent CSR fund. This is the brief detail of the changes made in CSR. So in light of those changes, now disclosures are required to be made, amount required to spend by the company, amount of expenditure incurred, shortfall at the end of the year, or koi shortfall. If you see, there cannot be any shortfall so far as 21 is concerned, but there could be some shortfall before 21, because before 21 there was no requirement to spend the money within the year itself. So there could be a shortfall for the earlier years. So reasons for shortfall, nature of CSR activities done by the company, then details of related party transaction. What is the related party transactions here? Related party transaction is how to do the CSR activity. The CSR can be done through either company can spend directly on CSR, or it has 4 options. One is the company can give to any government agency. Second is the company can give to any trust or association or any Section 8 company of the government. Thirdly, the company can form its own Section 8 company, association or trust to do the CSR activity. Fourthly, the company can give to any other society or trust or any Section 8 company which is not within the group. So there are 4 types of 4 organizations through which we can do this. Company can do this CSR. So if the company is doing CSR through its trust, then that is a related party. So that related party transactions are to be disclosed here as in Schedule 3 itself. So all this compliance of Section 135 has to be given in the Schedule 3 of the CARO 2020 also. Then details of cryptocurrency, अगर कंपनी ने किसी cryptocurrency वर्चुअल करेंसी में कोई डील किया है ड्यूरिंग द फाइनेंशियल ईयर, तो उसका प्रॉफिट या लॉस, उस कितनी करेंसी रिपोर्टिंग डेट पे उसने हेल्ड की हुई है और कितने एडवांस उसने ले रखे हैं किसी और से पर्सन से रिगार्डिंग ट्रेडिंग और इन्वेस्टिंग। इसमें आई ओनली सजेस्ट दैट प्रॉफिट और लॉस दोनों सेपरेटली डिस्क्लोज हो जाए, बिकॉज जब हम इनकम आईटीआर के लॉस एंड प्रॉफिट आर नॉट टू बी एडजस्टेड इन इनकम टैक्स, सो इफ द डिस्क्लोजर इज डन इन Schedule 3 itself for both profits or losses, then it will be better for the understanding the tax authorities also.
Sir, one question on this cryptocurrency.
Yes.
There is a clarification both by FASB and IASB that cryptocurrency is a intangible asset. So
Yes.
अभी अगर मैं यहाँ पे डिस्क्लोज करूँ, यहाँ पे कहीं पे नहीं लिखा है कि obviously it's an intangible asset but it is in nature of a current asset, correct? Because ऐसा नहीं कि मैं लॉन्ग टर्म के लिए उसको होल्ड कर रहा हूँ या जो भी मैनेजमेंट कंटेंशन रहेगा, तो उसका डिस्क्लोजर कहाँ पे होगा और कौन से हेड के अंदर होगा?
ये कितनी हम हेल्ड कर रहे हैं?
Sorry?
You are talking about how the currency held, where it should be disclosed.
Yeah, sir. The first question is whether.
समृद्धि वाला अलग है, त्याला देऊन.
So the first question is whether it should be disclosed as intangible asset. Second, if it is because intangible asset disclosed as.
What is an intangible asset as such? The intangible asset which you disclose is the asset which is used for the purpose of the business.
Yeah.
It is not held for trading. If it is held for trading, it is not an intangible asset. Even if you are holding a software.
But sir, this is also.
But I'm saying is, suppose you are holding software for trading, then it is not intangible asset for the company. It is a current asset or inventory.
Correct.
So it is not an intangible asset if you are held for trading. Is that clear? It's a current asset. It's a current asset.
But sir, it is, even if it's a current asset, it will not qualify as a financial asset, correct?
I'm not saying it's a financial asset. You are if you have two things. You are talking of India's or you are talking of AS.
Sir, I'm talking only of India's.
You are talking only of India's.
Yes, sir.
Correct. What is a financial asset? Against this, you will get the cash, which is not fixed.
Yes.
If it is not fixed and you are liquidated in cash, is it not a financial asset?
Sir, I don't recollect the exact the argument given by IASB that why it is not a financial asset. But there is an argument.
What I'm saying, you agree with me or not?
But sir, it is certainly not a cash, because
it is not a cash. I'm not saying it's a cash. It is not a cash. You will not show it in the cash and bank balances.
Correct.
But this asset shall be liquidated in cash, and that cash amount is not fixed. It changes in value.
So correct. So it is not, because it is not fixed amount of cash. Okay, so it cannot be disclosed as financial asset also, correct? If I'm not wrong.
You see, I feel if something is to be exchanged for cash.
This is what the argument both IASB and FASB has given.
Yes.
That's why it does not qualify as financial asset, and you need to disclose it as intangible. Now,
intangible asset, so you cannot. Please, what is an intangible asset? Intangible asset is an asset which is used for the purpose of the business of the company. It is an intangible asset. Basically, it is property, plant, and equipment, and intangible assets.
So even if property, plant, and equipment are held for sale, then obviously they are still disclosed.
No, that is to be disclosed as current asset, as a asset held for sale.
So there is a separate standard IFRS 5.
Yes. It is not a PPE. Whatever you are holding for sale is not PPE.
Okay, sir. It's a very. I don't remember it recollected properly, but we can have a discussion subsequently on this. Because my question was, I read this thing. The first question came to my mind was what kind of asset is it?
But my view is you cannot show the intangible so long as it is not being used for the purpose of the business of the company.
Okay.
I skipped the division 2 and division 3 because if you want, I can discuss, but there are small changes only. I just tell you regarding the lease liabilities. There was no place where to show the lease liabilities earlier. So they have given the places that they have to show the non-current liabilities or current liabilities. So far as these liabilities are concerned, another insertion was regarding the prior period errors. Actually, there was no such way where to disclose the prior period errors, because in accounting standards, prior period errors goes through P&L account, but in India's it does not go through P&L account, so it goes now. It will be disclosed in change in equity, and accordingly that column is given where to show the prior period errors, because these two changes are there. And division 3, there are 4 additional ratios जो कि इंडियस बैलेंस शीट जिस पे एप्लीकेबल है उनको देनी है, वो कैपिटल एडिक्वेसी रेशियोज और लिक्विडिटी रेशियोज. बेसिकली ये चारों रेशियो आरबीआई की रिक्वायरमेंट है, आरबीआई को डिस्क्लोज की जाती है, बट जिन कंपनीज के केस में दी है वो दैट उनकी जो कैपिटल है दैट इज अ वेरी हाई कैपिटल, बट आई डोंट नो नाउ द अमेंडमेंट मेड इन द शेड्यूल 3, it requires to be disclosed for all the companies on NBFC companies where India is applicable, and the calculation of this is a very cumbersome task. Tier 1 capital, Tier 2 capital, then they have to see the liquidity ratio. LCR is also very complicated to calculate regarding the sale of the liquidity within 30 days of in stress position. So tough calculation, but if it is required to be given, it is to be given.
खराब झालेले हे चांगले तेवढे इथे मी काढले ते तुमच्याकडे ठेवा.
Excuse me. Yeah. So with this, I complete India's schedule 3.
I have
Now
one question, please.
Any question on schedule 3?
So I have one question.
Yes, please.
Sir, you said this is Benami property disclosure is regarding movable, immovable properties.
Yes.
So what about the movable properties? For example, some FDs are in the name of, they are not in the name of the company, but still they are in the name of managing director or some director or some.
Yeah, I come to that slide. Yes. This schedule 3 says any Benami property. It nowhere says immovable property. Where any proceeding have been initiated or pending against the company for holding any Benami property under the Benami Transaction Provision Act.
This is for the PPEs, right? I mean, this is the
No.
immovable properties. In case there is a movable property, then where it has to be disclosed?
Just a moment. I just go through this our. In schedule 3, this is not regarding the immovable property. Schedule 3 is a disclosure details of Benami property held. It is not details of immovable property, Benami immovable property held. You go through the schedule 3. It nowhere talks about the immovable property. Have you seen the schedule 3?
Right.
Amendments.
Yes.
Do you have the copy of that? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Do you have the copy of the schedule 3?
No, sir, I don't have.
You just,
Okay.
it does not talk of the immovable property only. But what you are discussing is the disclosure in CARO 2020.
Right, sir.
In CARO 2020, we have this disclosure under the immovable property, plant and equipment. clause 1, whether any proceeding against is pending against the company. But whereas Schedule 3 is concerned, it nowhere talks about the immovable property.
सर अगर आपको इंस्टीट्यूट का गाइडेंस नोट हैंडी हो शेड्यूल 3 के ऊपर, तो उसमें जो उन्होंने रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट का फॉर्मूला दिया, इट इज वेरी कॉम्प्लेक्स। हाँ, उसे डिस्कस कर सकते हैं?
मैं शायद उसको नहीं डिस्कस कर पाऊंगा क्योंकि वो तो टाइम फैक्टर को लेता है बेसिकली।
जी जी जी,
तो मतलब एज ए
मतलब वो बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स है। फॉर एग्जांपल अगर एक एफडीआर है इन्वेस्टमेंट क्लास के अंदर और एफडीआर मल्टीपल टाइम्स बनी हुई है, तो उसका जो रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट निकालना, इट इज अ वेरी वेरी, अगर उस फॉर्मूले के हिसाब से जाएंगे तो वेरी टाइम कंज्यूमिंग कॉम्प्लेक्स फॉर्मूला है
वो बेसिकली। वही मैं कह रहा हूँ, वो तो बात करता है कि कितने टाइम में कितना इन्वेस्टमेंट है, कितना रिटर्न। टाइम फैक्टर को तो निकालना पहले से वेरी इसे स्टैटिस्टिकल एक्टिविटी एक्चुअली।
तो सर वो उसका भी तो कोई शॉर्टकट वे ढूंढना पड़ेगा, बिकॉज़ ऑडिट्स के दिनों में तो बहुत टाइम कंज्यूमिंग हो जाएगा, और स्पेशली
देखिए मुझे तो मतलब देखिए जब हम लोग ने पढ़ा है एफएम, तब तक भी ऐसा कोई प्रोविजन पढ़ा नहीं। हम तो रिटर्न ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट को रिटर्न ऑफ एम्प्लॉय समझते थे। हाँ, फ्रैंकली स्पीकिंग आज तक हमने
आइदर वी शुड टेक हेल्प ऑफ सम एमबीए फाइनेंस, और कुछ उसका कुछ एक्सेल में शॉर्टकट तो यू हैव टू गेट इट आउट।
शायद मैं ना दे पाऊँ, ये तो हमें किसी ना किसी फाइनेंस मैन से लेना ही पड़ेगा क्योंकि इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट। और एक्सेल में भी मिलना इज नॉट दैट इजी। इट कैन नॉट बी सो इजी कि आप किसी से एक्सेल में ले लेंगे और उसकी डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द ट्रांजैक्शन ऑफ द कंपनी इट विल बी वेरी कम्बरसम टू कन्वर्ट। देखिए काम तो मैनेजमेंट का है, एज एन ऑडिटर हमारा काम तो है नहीं।
मैनेजमेंट गलत निकाल रही है, सही निकाल रही है, वो चेक करना हमारा ही काम है ना।
तो सही, हाँ बस वो बात है कि हमें उसमें हम उसको कैसे चेक करेंगे, क्योंकि हमें भी वो निकालना नहीं आता। जब तक ये इंस्टीट्यूट का गाइडेंस नोट नहीं आया तो लाइफ वाज इजी, क्योंकि हाँ फ्रैंकली स्पीकिंग
वो आने के बाद प्रॉब्लम बढ़ गई है, बल्कि
वो आने का प्रॉब्लम बढ़ गई। क्योंकि जब तक तो अच्छा आई ट्राइड कि हम उसके गाइडेंस नोट से भी उसको समझने की कोशिश करें, तो वहां समझ तो आता नहीं।
नहीं गाइडेंस नोट में कुछ क्लैरिटी नहीं है, सिवाय एक फॉर्मूला देने का कोई क्लैरिटी नहीं, कोई एग्जांपल्स नहीं, कुछ नहीं।
या तो गाइडेंस नोट में उसको उतना क्लैरिफाई करते हैं जितना डिटेल फॉर्मेट वो दिया है। और आई ट्राइड टू, मैंने गूगल में भी काफी कोशिश की उसको समझने की कि कहीं और में वो फार्मूला मिल जाए, बट गूगल में मुझे वो फार्मूला मिला नहीं।
नो वी आल्सो ट्राइड वेरी मच, बट वो जहाँ जितनी डिफरेंट इन्वेस्टमेंट क्लास है और जितनी मल्टीपल इन्वेस्टमेंट्स है, ओपनिंग है, रिडम्पशन है, एडिशंस है, तो उतना मुश्किल होता जा रहा है वो।
देखिए डिपेंड करता है, अगर एक ही इन्वेस्टमेंट दो इन्वेस्टमेंट तो आप यूज कर सकते हैं इसको।
हाँ, अगर आपकी सिंगल इन्वेस्टमेंट है और उसके अंदर एक और इशू ये आ रहा है, उन्होंने काफी जगह मार्केट वैल्यू वर्ड यूज किया है। अब फॉर एग्जांपल अगर इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी है या मेरे अनकोटेड शेयर्स हैं, इक्विटी शेयर्स है, अब उसके लिए मैं क्या लूं, मार्केट वैल्यू कैसे निकालूं, वो उसके ऊपर साइलेंट है गाइडेंस नोट। तो उसमें मार्केट वैल्यू कैसे ले?
ना गाइडेंस उसकी गाइडेंस दे ही नहीं सकता ना। मार्केट वैल्यू में से मार्केट वैल्यू व्हेन द मार्केट जब मार्केट वैल्यू
कैसे निकालें फिर? अब हर एक की बैलेंस शीट लेना, बुक वैल्यू निकालना, वो तो पॉसिबल ही नहीं है।
यस यस, और एज ए चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट तो आपके लिए बड़ा मुश्किल है उसकी मार्केट वैल्यू को सर्टिफाई करना। बेसिकली अगर मैनेजमेंट ने
आप क्या सजेस्ट करते हो, कैसे करें फिर गोइंग फॉरवर्ड?
हम मुझे मतलब फ्रेंकली हमने रेशियोज के ऊपर एज सच कोई रिपोर्टिंग नहीं है। एज सच कोई रिपोर्टिंग नहीं है। अगर हम कारो 2020 में पढ़ेंगे तो उसमें भी रेशियोज के ऊपर
शेड्यूल 3 तो वी हैव टू सर्टिफाई अलोंग विद द मैनेजमेंट।
शेड्यूल 3 में वी आर सर्टिफाइंग दैट देयर इज नो मिस स्टेटमेंट। लेकिन रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट बेसिकली जो है, या तो हम अगर किसी मैनेजमेंट ने वो फॉर्मूले को यूज किया है, अगर उस फॉर्मूले को यूज किया है तो जो भी फिगर्स उसने लिए हैं उसकी हम एक कैलकुलेशन ले लें कि उसने जो फिगर्स लिए वो कैसे लिए।
तो कई केसेस में ये कह रही है, सिंपली स्टेटमेंट दे रही है कि वी डोंट हैव अ मार्केट वैल्यू, आप हमारी कॉस्ट प्राइस ले लो। अब कॉस्ट प्राइस इंस्टीट्यूट का गाइडेंस नोट अलाउ नहीं कर रहा।
देखो इंस्टीट्यूट का गाइडेंस नोट, देखिए इंस्टीट्यूट का गाइडेंस नोट इज नॉट अलाउइंग और डिसअलाउइंग एनीथिंग। इट इज गाइडिंग यू कि हाउ टू कैलकुलेट दिस रेशियो। अगर ऐसा है तो आप उसमें नोट में बेसिकली अगर मैनेजमेंट नोट में डाल देता है कि हमने मार्केट वैल्यू की जगह हमने कॉस्ट लिया है, तो डिस्क्लोजर इज परफेक्ट। मतलब दैट नीड्स टू बी डिस्क्लोज्ड कि इस कैलकुलेशन में बिकॉज वी डोंट हैव द मार्केट वैल्यू सो वी हैव टेकन द कॉस्ट एज मार्केट वैल्यू।
तो यू आर सेइंग हम इतना बड़ा डेविएशन ले सकते हैं इंस्टीट्यूट के गाइडेंस नोट से?
बिल्कुल ले सकते, देखिए गाइडेंस नोट से हम डेविएशन ले सकते हैं, सो लॉन्ग एज द डिस्क्लोजर इज परफेक्ट. Disclosure guidance note is guiding us how to calculate it, but this is guiding the management to how to calculate it. अगर मैनेजमेंट के पास भी नहीं है तो मैनेजमेंट क्या करेगा? इक्विटी शेयर्स की मार्केट वैल्यू तो होती ही नहीं है एज सच. इंडेक्स भी कहता है कि इसकी फेयर वैल्यू जो है वो उसकी कॉस्ट है, बिकॉज दिस इज नॉट नॉर्मली ट्रेडेड ट्रांजेक्शन ना. तो
Sir, I believe, sir, in that guidance note, jo issued by ICI is not mandatory for even for CAs. It's only for guidance, and
Yes.
specifically in my opinion, it is not mandatory on management. And here the management is the main management is the main who is making financial statement as well schedule 3. अगर वो schedule 3 से deviate कर रहे हैं तो हमें सिर्फ report करना है. I believe so. That is my opinion. That we only have to report that this is a deviation. Is a deviation. और further sir हम guidance note को हम I think we all are using ये एक beneficial के लिए है. मतलब अगर हमें को लगता है कोई चीज हमें नहीं मिल रही है या हम कुछ नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं, then we can go for a guidance note. अगर कोई हम already एक understanding है या already हम एक disclosure proper दे रहे हैं, then we need not to go to guidance note for that because it's not mandatory.
That's what I'm saying ना, अगर उसने cost दिया है तो वो disclose करते हैं cost.
Perfect, sir.
Market
Perfect.
value was not there.
I
So
believe same, sir. I believe same.
that should be there.
Sir, one question on Schedule 3. Sir, this the conduit financing. Okay, so this disclosure is required from the current year, right? But in the Schedule 3, comparative figures are required to be provided.
Yes, all figures have to be done.
So sir, ये जो disclosure रहेगा, suppose there are two cases. देखिए, एक मैनेज क्योंकि ये rules मतलब मैनेजमेंट स्मार्ट थी, देखिए उसको 143 का पहले पता चल गया, तो उसने साल से पहले ही एंट्री साफ कर दी. सो नाउ दिस इज केस 1. केस 2 में वो चल ही रही है, ठीक है. सो केस 1 के अंदर क्या ऑडिटर को वो रिपोर्ट करना पड़ेगा, ठीक है, कि या मैनेजमेंट को डिस्क्लोज करना पड़ेगा बिकॉज इट्स अ कंपैरेटिव फिगर. एंड इन केस 2 वो ट्रांजैक्शन चलते ही आ रही है, ठीक है. सो आज भी वो बुक्स में है ही. सो वेदर दैट डिस्क्लोजर इज रिक्वायर्ड.
You are talking about the conduit funding?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. तो बेसिकली कंड्यूट फंडिंग में जो फंड ड्यूरिंग द ईयर कंपनी ने दिया है, द फंड गिवन बाय द कंपनी और फंड टेकन ड्यूरिंग द ईयर बाय द कंपनी,
यस,
दैट इज टू बी. देखिए कंड्यूट फंडिंग में 2-3 केस हो सकते हैं. इफ यू डिस्कस द कंड्यूट फंडिंग.
No, sir, I think I have not communicated it well. देखिए, it's let's say whatever may be the case of conduit funding. मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि ये एप्लीकेबल है करंट फाइनेंशियल ईयर से, करेक्ट, जो मुझे अभी रिपोर्ट करने हैं. नाउ ट्रांजैक्शन सपोज 3 साल पहले हुई हो, मगर बुक्स में तो आज की डेट में भी है. सो द क्वेश्चन वन इज वेदर इट इज टू बी रिपोर्टेड. दैट इज वन. सेकंड इज लेट्स से उसने 1 साल पहले मतलब कंपैरेटिव पीरियड के अंदर वो ट्रांजैक्शन हुई थी और वो ट्रांजैक्शन उसने कंपैरेटिव पीरियड में रिमूव कर डाली, मतलब कर डाली, रिवर्स करंट ईयर में रिवर्सल कर डाला उसका, सपोज फर्स्ट अप्रैल को. सो इट इज अ पार्ट ऑफ द कंपैरेटिव पीरियड. सो अभी मुझे रिपोर्ट करना है.
नहीं, आई वाज अंडरस्टैंडिंग उसी पे आ रहा था, मैं उसी पे आ रहा था. बेसिकली कंड्यूट फंडिंग में कैसे हो सकता है? कंड्यूट फंडिंग में बेसिकली क्या है कि कंपनी ए ने कंपनी बी को फंड दिया फॉर अल्टीमेट बेनिफिशियरीज. हो सकता है कंपनी ए ने जब कंपनी बी को दिया, हम 21-22 की बात कर रहे हैं अभी, ठीक है. 21-22 का ऑडिट कर रहे हैं. कंपनी ए ने कंपनी बी को फंड दिया, ठीक है. कंपनी बी को जब फंड दिया उस वक्त उसने कोई बेनिफिशियरी को आइडेंटिफाई नहीं किया था, कोई कंडीशन नहीं लगाई थी, तो वो यहाँ कवर ही नहीं होता था. बट बिफोर द ऑडिट रिपोर्ट B and A has undergone understanding कि जो A ने B को दिया है वो पर्टिकुलर बेनिफिशियरी को दिया जाएगा बिफोर द ऑडिट रिपोर्ट. तो क्या हुआ कि वो कवर हो गया बिफोर द ऑडिट रिपोर्ट बिकॉज देयर वाज एन अंडरस्टैंडिंग. तो दैट मींस डिस्क्लोजर इन दिस ईयर इन 21-22 में. लेकिन अगर सपोज वो अंडरस्टैंडिंग 21-22 के बाद आई, मतलब 21-22 की अंडरस्टैंडिंग हमारी ऑडिट रिपोर्ट के बाद आई, अंडरस्टैंडिंग के बाद आई, तो इस साल एप्लीकेबल नहीं हो, अगले साल एप्लीकेबल हो गया, ठीक है. 22-23 का जब रिपोर्ट करेंगे. अच्छा, अगर वो 21 अब 2 साल हो गए हमारे, 20-21 में हमारे 21-22 में रिपोर्ट नहीं हो, 22-23 में हमारा रिपोर्ट हो गया. सपोज वो फंड 22-23 में वापिस, सॉरी 20-21 जैसे 21-22 में हमने फंड दिया, और अंडरस्टैंडिंग हुई 22-23 में, तो हमने वो रिपोर्ट किया 22-23 में। लेकिन क्योंकि वो फंड जब 22-23 में अंडरस्टैंडिंग हो गई तो रिपोर्ट हो गया। कब रिपोर्ट हुआ? जब हमारी अंडरस्टैंडिंग हो गई। अब 23-24 में तो फंड दिया भी जा चुका था और अंडरस्टैंडिंग हो चुकी थी, तो उस साल की तो रिपोर्टिंग उसकी नहीं होगी, तो उसकी रिपोर्टिंग पिछले साल में हो चुकी।
ओके,
आप समझ गए मेरी बात को?
हाँ समझ गया। मतलब आप बोल रहे हैं जिस साल ट्रांजैक्शन हुआ उसी साल रिपोर्ट करना है, अगले साल रिपोर्ट नहीं करना।
नहीं करना, क्योंकि रिपोर्टिंग तो उसकी लास्ट में हो चुकी। आप एक ही फंड की आपने तो बात की क्योंकि इस साल एप्लीकेबल हुआ। अगर वही फंड 4 साल चलता रहेगा तो 4 साल रिपोर्ट करते रहेंगे क्या आप?
हाँ मतलब सर वही है। अब जैसे यहाँ पे अभी इस साल से ये रिपोर्टिंग स्टार्ट हो गई, मगर मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि इसने ट्रांजैक्शन लास्ट ईयर करा, लास्ट ईयर तो वो एप्लीकेबल था नहीं, मगर वो कंपैरेटिव पीरियड है।
यस, लास्ट ईयर कंपैरेटिव पीरियड देना आपको, करेक्ट
देना पड़ेगा। ओके ओके ठीक है।
अगर कोई उससे पिछले साल का तो नहीं देना।
हाँ तो नहीं देना पड़ेगा,
तो नहीं देना। दिस इज व्हाट आई एम सेइंग। क्लियर है? नाउ वी प्रोसीड टू CARO 20। Yeah.
Sir, just one question relating to NBFCs, the disclosure required. As you already mentioned that, in most of NBFCs, those ratios are not otherwise applicable because they're below the threshold limit.
Yes,
but
yes,
still here we have to give those ratios, or do we not have to give them?
Schedule 3 requires. देखिए शेड्यूल 3 की रिक्वायरमेंट है तो हमें देना ही पड़ेगा। शेड्यूल 3 यही कहता है कि अगर कोई चीज एनडीएस हमारे अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स पे एप्लीकेबल नहीं है, हम अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स और दी एक्ट को के हिसाब से हम इसको शेड्यूल 3 को मोल्ड कर सकते हैं, बट आरबीआई कैन नॉट बी डीम्ड एज द अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड और द कंपनीज एक्ट।
So they have to be
given. They have to be
the
given.
management in one case is saying they're not applicable to us, so that is not the correct argument.
Not applicable as per RBI is concerned.
Yes, yes.
नहीं, RBI report as per RBI reporting is concerned.
Yes.
But ratio is there.
But even in the ratios, it's somewhere written that you will calculate those ratios as per the applicable authority. So that again comes out to be RBI, and RBI says they're not applicable.
If that as per RBI is, then it is not required.
So can you repeat, sir?
If the ratio, this disclosure itself says if it is not required by the concerned authority, then these are not covered. But schedule 3 nowhere says. It says ratios have to be disclosed. These 4 ratios. This is a change in schedule 3 nowhere says as per the concerned authorities.
But the calculation of the ratios has to be as per RBI rules, I think.
Calculation of the ratios, you say as per RBI. This I don't agree. Calculation of ratio, when RBI requires, then you disclose to RBI. But ratios are always there.
Okay, sir, so as per the RBI norms, in case of companies to which Ind AS is applicable, the ratios are to be required. To whatever ratios, including the NPA, gross NPA, net NPA ratios, to be computed as per the accounting standard only.
Yes. Then?
So that's what the answer is, because he was saying that RBI has different norms. RBI doesn't have different norms. RBI is rather saying that you compute as per the accounting norm.
Yes. Because Schedule 3 requires you have to disclose even in India's balance sheets.
Yeah.
Then we come to CARO 2020. जो हमने शेड्यूल 3 में पढ़े होंगे उसको हम थोड़ा सा लाइटली रिक्वायरमेंट होगी तो डिस्कस करेंगे, अदरवाइज CARO 2020 में वो क्लॉजेज हम डिटेल में डिस्कस करेंगे जो शेड्यूल 3 में कवर्ड नहीं है। CARO 2016 और CARO 2020 में जो चेंज आया, CARO 2016 में 16 क्लॉजेज थे, CARO 2020 में 20 क्लॉजेज थे। मैंने एक क्लॉज को हटा दिया जो कि CFS का है, कंसोलिडेटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स का। तो बेसिकली 16 में तो 16 क्लॉज थे और 20 में 20 क्लॉजेस थे। लुकिंग एट इटसेल्फ there is an increase of only 4 clauses, but if you go to a sub clauses also, then CARO 16 has 23 clauses and sub clauses, and the CARO 2020 has 48 clauses and sub clauses. So far as applicability is concerned, there is no change in the applicability of the CARO. जो 16 में थी वही 20 में। The only change which is there now is the definition of the small company in the Companies Act. Now, जो earlier definition थी 50 paid up capital is less than 50 lakh and turnover less than 5 crores. That is now changed to paid up capital less than 2 crores and turnover less than 20 crores. If both the conditions are fulfilled, then it is a small company, and if it is a small company, CARO is not applicable. सो बेसिकली ये जो प्राइवेट कंपनी का एग्जाम्पशन था रिगार्डिंग दिस we had a capital reserves of 1 crore and total revenue of 10 crores. ये तो रिडंडेंट हो गए क्योंकि ये तो स्मॉल कंपनी की डेफिनेशन ही 2 crores और 20 crores की हो गई. तो अगर कोई प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी 2 crores और 20 crores से फॉल करती है तो दैट इज एग्जेम्प्ट. सो मोस्ट ऑफ द कंपनीज सो फार एज प्राइवेट कंपनीज आर shall be exempt from the CARO. If we divide the disclosures under CARO, so there are certain disclosures which requires compliance, the reporting of compliance of Companies Act, and there are other disclosures. So far as Companies Act are concerned, there are 17 sections which require disclosure under CARO. Regarding 185, 186, there is no change. There was requirement of reporting of compliance of section 185 earlier also, and compliance of section 186 earlier also. So there is no change. Then section 189, disclosure regarding section 189 is regarding this is a very detailed disclosure in CARO 2020 now. जो section 189 का disclosure था loans and advances का, so that was the disclosure whether the company has given any loan or provided any guarantee or security to parties covered under section 189, and if it is done, whether it is prima facie prejudicial to the interest of the company. Number 2. Number 3, whether the stipulation as to repayment has been given. If it is given, whether the repayment is regular. Number 4, if it is if outstanding is more than 90 days, whether the reasonable steps has been taken by the company. इतना disclosure था CARO 2016 में. अब CARO 2020 में ये जो डिस्क्लोजर है, ये जो क्लास का इस क्लास का डिस्क्लोजर है, वो बहुत डिटेल हो गया. इसमें पहले इन्वेस्टमेंट कवर नहीं था, अब इसमें इन्वेस्टमेंट भी कवर हो गया. ये सेक्शन 189 की बात करता है, सेक्शन 189 की बात नहीं करता. इट सेज लोन सिक्योरिटी गारंटी इन्वेस्टमेंट टू एनी पर्सन. ऑल द लोन्स आर कवर्ड फॉर डिस्क्लोजर अंडर दिस प्रोविजन. अब इसमें क्या क्या एडिशनल डिस्क्लोजर्स रिक्वायर्ड है? एक तो डिस्क्लोजर है कि वेदर लोन सिक्योरिटी गारंटी फॉर सब्सिडरी, जो सब्सिडरी और जॉइंट वेंचर्स और
सर एक्सक्यूज मी सर 1 मिनट सर. एक आपने एक इश्यू रेज किया है अपने पावर पॉइंट में, मेरे माइंड में भी था कि ये जो शेड्यूल 3 है, इट इज एप्लीकेबल फ्रॉम 1421 और 22. इट कवर्स द अकाउंटिंग पीरियड और इट इज बैलेंस शीट साइंड आफ्टर 1421.
This is applicable from 1421. Any financial statement which is prepared from 1421. अगर आपका अकाउंटिंग ईयर 1421 के से शुरू होता है या उसके बाद शुरू होता है तो दिस इज एप्लीकेबल.
अच्छा, it is related to accounting period, not to the financial statement side.
बेसिकली जो नोटिफिकेशन है, यहाँ एक ऐसा पॉइंट है, बहुत अच्छा पॉइंट है आपका. बेसिकली नोटिफिकेशन जब ये आया तो इससे 1421 एप्लीकेबल फ्रॉम 1421. तो ये क्वेश्चन था whether it is applicable for those companies where the audit report is being signed after 1421 or whether the financial state where the financial year is commencing from 1421. That clarification was not there from MCA.
Okay.
But हमारे इंस्टीट्यूट ने MCA को लेटर लिखा और ऐसा ही लेटर लिखा कि that clarification is not there, but we have the understanding that this is applicable for financial year commencing on or after 1421. If our understanding is not correct, please apply.
Okay.
So MCA didn't apply, so we accept it.
Okay, sir. Okay, that means it is applicable for the current year only. Matlab,
Yes.
21, 22. Right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Yeah. So अभी जो रिक्वायरमेंट है उसमें एक तो रिक्वायरमेंट आई कि अगर कंपनी ने अपनी सब्सिडीज के लिए, एसोसिएट्स या जॉइंट वेंचर्स के लिए कोई भी किसी पार्टी से लोन लिया है तो वो उसकी डिटेल, या कोई भी लोन ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ सिक्योरिटी और सिक्योरिटीज ऑफ सब्सिडरी, जॉइंट वेंचर्स और एसोसिएट्स से लिया है तो उसकी डिटेल, वो सारी डिटेल जो रिगार्डिंग सब्सिडरीज है वो इसमें देनी है. एडिशनल डिस्क्लोजर है जो एनबीएफसी पे एप्लीकेबल नहीं है. अब ऐसे लोन जो कि ड्यूरिंग द ईयर ड्यू हो गए, दोज हैव फॉलन ड्यू, जो हम बैंक्स ऑडिट करते हैं तो बैंक ऑडिट में देखते हैं कि जो लोन ड्यू हुए उसको बैंक ने रिन्यू कर दिया या उसको रीशेड्यूल कर दिया और कैसे सेटल कर दिया, तो वो देखना है। नॉन एनबीएफसी कंपनीज के अंदर ऐसे कौन से लोन है जो कि ड्यू हुए थे और रीपे नहीं हुए, जिसको कर दिया, रिन्यू कर दिया या किसी और तरीके से सेटल कर दिया, रीशेड्यूल कर दिया, तो ऐसे कितने लोन है और वो टोटल लोन के कितना परसेंटेज है, दैट डिटेल हैज टू बी गिवन। फिर उसने बताना है कि whether it is in the interest of the company or not, whether it is prejudicial to the interest of the company or not. अब इसमें बेसिकली क्या है, इन्वेस्टमेंट इज आल्सो कवर्ड, whether the investment done by the company is in the interest of the company or not. तो ये मैंने ऑडिटर की बहुत जिम्मेदारी है देखना। देखिए, ये हो सकता है कि कंपनी के पास प्रेसिंग लायबिलिटीज हैं, 3 साल के क्रेडिटर खड़े हुए हैं, कंपनी इज नॉट पेइंग टू द क्रेडिटर्स, कंपनी इज डिफॉल्टिंग द रीपेमेंट टू द borrowings, for the borrowings, whereas the company is making investments in securities. So the auditor should take call whether it can be in the interest of the company to make investments when we are making defaults in the repayment of the borrowings or through the creditors. ये एडिशनल डिस्क्लोजर्स हैं, मैंने डिस्कस किए। इसके अलावा जो 1-2 पॉइंट और है वो मैं डिस्कस करता हूँ रिगार्डिंग दिस। वो कहता है कि whether the company has granted loans advances which is repayable on demand or which is without specifying the repayment schedule. अगर जो हमने बात की KMP के केस में, शेड्यूल 3 में डिस्क्लोजर है, सेम डिस्क्लोजर इज देयर इन कारो आल्सो, बट इससे कितने ऐसे लोन है टोटल लोन्स में से जो कि डिमांड लोन है या विदाउट स्टिपुलेशन ऑफ रिपेमेंट है, टोटल अमाउंट कितने हैं और टोटल लोन्स का कितना परसेंट है, और सेम वे इसमें से कितने लोन जो शेड्यूल 3 में हमने डिस्क्लोज किया प्रमोटर्स को, रिलेटिव पार्टीज को, वो कितने हैं। तो दैट डिस्क्लोजर इन द कारो। सो दिस इज अ डिटेल्ड डिस्क्लोजर रिगार्डिंग लोन्स एंड एडवांसेस। कारो का फोकस लोन लेने और लोन देने दो को बहुत डिटेल डिस्क्लोजर्स हैं, एंड बेसिक थ्रस्ट जो है और बेसिक कंपनी के अंदर जब पैसा कहीं बाहर जाता है तो वो लोन के थ्रू ही जाता है, तो दैट इज टू बी थॉरोली चेक। सेक्शन 73 टू 76 की कंप्लायंस डिपॉजिट्स की पहले कारों में थी, इसमें भी है, देयर इज नो चेंज, नीड नॉट टू बी डिस्कस। सेक्शन 148 कॉस्ट रिकॉर्ड सेम वे पहले भी था, अब भी देयर इज नो चेंज, नीड नॉट टू बी डिस्कस्ड। देन सेक्शन 62 एंड सेक्शन 42 पहले जो प्रोविजन था कारों में, दैट रिक्वायर्ड अस टू report whether the provisions section 42 have been complied by the companies. Now it says whether provisions section 42 and 62 both have been complied by the company or not in making the preferential allotment or private placement. If section 62 is added in CARO 2020, but if you ask me, compliance of section 62 in itself inherently require this compliance of section 62. Without complying section 62 subsection 3, we cannot comply in section 42. So that was there inherently there in CARO 16 also. Now it is asking specifically whether 62 has been complied or not. Then section 197 managerial remuneration, एक ऐसी क्लॉज है CARO 2016 की जो डिलीट हुई है CARO 2020 से। अब section 197 और section schedule 5 की disclosure is not required so far as CARO 2020 is concerned. Why it is not required? Because this section is applicable only on public limited companies, and public limited companies are required to disclose the compliance of section 197 in their section 143 report itself by virtue of section 197 subsection 16. So there was 2 disclosures earlier, so dual disclosures को single disclosure, so rightly it has been abolished. Compliance of section 177 and section 188 related party transactions earlier also we were disclosing, so I don't think we need to discuss here. Compliance of section 192 non-cash transaction with the directors is also same earlier as it was in 2016. Then changes in disclosures reporting of frauds. Earlier the clause states whether any fraud is noticed or reported to have been done by the employees or officers of the company. Earlier, the clause required to disclose the frauds noticed or reported to have done by the employees or officers of the company. Now, this clause is comprehensively, reporting is comprehensively increased. It not only covers the employees and officers, it says any fraud by or on the company. So it covers all employees, officers, third parties. All such frauds noticed or reported are to be disclosed in CARO. Secondly, whether the auditor has disclosed, has reported any fraud under section 143.12, that is also to be reported here. Thirdly, whether there is any whistleblower complaint received by the company, whether that complaint has been considered by the auditor. So 3 clauses are there in this fraud disclosures. So this has been extensively increased. अब इसमें responsibility बहुत है, so most of the things we must obtain in our MR. We must ask directly from the company and take MR also. Then internal audit requirement. Basically ये clause पहले CARO 2020 में आने से पहले भी होता था, 2016 से पहले हट गया था, दोबारा से reintroduce हो गया. Whether the internal audit is applicable to the company, whether there is a company has an internal audit system commensurate with the size and nature of the company, and if so, whether the report of the internal auditor has been considered by the auditor. अब इसमें basically 2 चीज आती हैं कि whether the internal audit is applicable on the company. Section 138 क्या कहता है? Listed companies, certain classes of public companies, and certain classes of private companies, internal audit is applicable. So if the internal audit is not applicable, we can report that internal audit is not applicable. But even though the internal audit is not applicable, the company has in its system internal audit, and internal auditor has given the report. Then it will become the report, the duty of our audit of the auditor to obtain those reports and to give this and to report that there is a system of internal audit and the report has been considered, and reports are required to be considered by the auditor. CSR we have already discussed. This is our audit report, CARO report. We have to give whether the CSR has been complied with. So these were the Companies Act provisions which I have discussed. Now, apart from Companies Act sections, there are other disclosures in the CARO. First is regarding property, plant and equipment. It requires whether the proper records have been maintained. So far as PP is concerned, earlier it was as it was earlier. Not it includes intangible assets also. Earlier it was not talking about the intangible assets. So we have to check the records maintained by the company so far as intangible assets are also concerned. So this is additional requirement that you have to report. Physical verification by management reasonable intervals. It was earlier. We have been reporting for years now. Need not to be discussed. Then material discrepancies, whether properly dealt with, that is also we have been dealing for long. Title is a remote property held in the name of the company. Schedule 3 we have discussed. Schedule 3 is a proper disclosure. A same format is given here also. And if it is not in the name of the company, that format is to be given in the CARO also. Then details of revaluation, whether the PPE or intangible assets have been revalued, whether it has been revalued by the registered valuer. If it is not done by the we have to state. And if the revaluation is change is 10% or more, change means plus or minus both. If the change is 10% or more, then we have to disclose that amount. Whether the company holds any benami property, that is to be that also be disclosed under CARO here. Is a revaluation wala point hai basically. It is because of the AS. Earlier, actually, the company has the facility to provide appreciation on revaluation basis also. But accounting standards or Ind AS nowhere is required that revaluation to be done by the registered valuer. So that is why in many cases the revaluation is done, but it's not done by the registered valuer. So it is a disclosure for the understanding of the reader of the balance sheet that this revaluation is whether done by the registered valuer or whether it is not done by the revaluation. Otherwise, it is not mandatory so far as the accounting standards are concerned. So this is the format which we have taken from the Schedule 3 में भी दे रहे हैं हम regarding the immovable property not held in the name of the company, and then revaluation, which I have already discussed, both in the case of the property, plant and equipment, and also of the intangible assets. Whether any proceeding is pending or initiative against the company, Benami, same provision. Then we comes to inventory. Whether the inventory has been physically verified by the management at reasonable intervals, ये हम पहले भी report करते थे, at reasonable intervals. Now, 2 additional words are added in our reporting: the coverage and procedure. Whether the coverage of physical verification done by the management and the procedure adopted by the management was appropriate. So that is also required to be reported. I'll take 2 minutes on this point. Basically, physical inventory verification is the duty of the management. We are only supposed to report the reasonableness earlier. Now they are also requiring us to report the coverage and procedure. If you see SA 501, it requires the auditor to attend the physical verification being taken by the management at the year end to see the procedure and the coverage by the management of the inventory. So if you see, indirectly, this reporting requires the auditor to report what the auditor has seen while attending the physical verification. And I tell you, there is no excuse so for the auditor to not to attend the physical inventory. In exceptional circumstances, if it is not attended, then alternative audit procedures they have prescribed in SA 501. Otherwise, physical verification is mandatory to attend by the auditor. Then earlier also the clause was there, if the material discrepancy, whether it has been properly dealt with in the books of accounts, the materiality was not defined earlier. Now it says if it is 10% or more, if the variance is 10% or more, then whether it has been properly accounted for or not. Thirdly, the quarterly statement submitted with the banks of financial institution, whether they are in agreement with the books of accounts or not, that is also to be reported here as reported in Schedule 3. I've given the clause whether during any point of time of the year, when the company is sanctioned working capital limit in excess of 5 crores in aggregate from banks of financial institutions on the security of current assets, whether the quarterly statements filed by the company with the such banks or institutions are in agreement of the books of accounts. देखिए, अगर हम यहाँ देखें तो एक जो अमेंडमेंट है रिगार्डिंग दी मेंटेनेंस ऑफ द बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स सॉफ्टवेयर, इफ द मेंटेनेंस the software keeps this plays a very crucial role, because while we are certifying it here, if accounting statement was submit here quarterly, whether that is in the agreement of the books of account or not, how can we certify if the amendments can be made? Suppose हम एक कंपनी का ऑडिट कर रहे हैं, उसने सन्डे क्रेडिटर की अमाउंट अपनी क्वार्टरली स्टेटमेंट में दिए हैं, अब जब वो बैंक को देता है, सपोज 30 सितंबर का रिपोर्ट वो दे रहा है, 30 सितंबर को वो एक एंट्री पास कर देता है क्रेडिटर में, और वो 1 अक्टूबर को उसको रिवर्स कर देता है. सो 30 सितंबर के ट्रायल बेसिस चेंज होगी और फर्स्ट को डिफरेंट होगी. सो ऑल दोस थिंग्स वी आर रिक्वायर्ड टू चेक, एंड इफ सपोज एंट्रीज कैन बी डिलीटेड और अमेंडेड, तो अगर अमेंडमेंट एंट्री डालता है तो फर्स्ट की हमें मिल जाती है. अगर वो चेंज करता है, तो अगर उन्होंने 30 सितंबर उसको डिलीट किया है, तो वो हमें इमीडिएटली मिल जाती है by taking the log of the amendment made by the management. So that amendment, that notification is very important so far as the financial controls are concerned. So far as we are concerned as an auditor to report on the internal financial controls. अगर इसमें एक बात और देखें, अभी जो 22/1/2021 को सेक्शन 129 में एक का एक नोटिफिकेशन आया जिसमें सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट इज एम्पावर्ड that the central government can give for certain classes of unlisted companies to prepare their periodical audited and limited report and to file it with the ROC within 30 days. तो उसमें हो सकता है ऐसी कंपनीज को कवर करें जिन्होंने बैंक से एक सर्टेन लिमिट से फंडिंग लोनिंग की भी है कि वो लिमिटेड रिपोर्ट ऑडिट रिपोर्ट जैसे लिस्टेड कंपनीज अपनी लिमिटेड रिपोर्ट भेजती हैं, सेम वे वो कंपनीज वो ROC में फाइल करें. So this we may see anytime this change will come, this notification will, the companies will be notified. Static reviews there is no change. पहले भी हम डिस्क्लोज कर रहे थे, एक छोटा सा चेंज अगर उसको मैन्युअली देखें तो, क्योंकि क्लॉज बी कहता है अनडिस्प्यूटेड static reviews which are not been deposited because of dispute for more than 6 months, that details has to be given. उसमें जो लिस्ट है उसमें PF and ESI was not covered, but now Clause B says dues as given in clause A. So all the dues are covered, including PF and ESI. If there is a dispute and not deposit on account of dispute of PF or ESI also, that those are to be disclosed here. Undisclosed income, Schedule 3 में हमने डिस्कस किया कि जो हमने कंपनी में सरेंडर किए हैं, whether those have been properly accounted for in the books of account or not. If it is not reported in Schedule 3 properly, then it has to be modified here. That is given in CARO also. Defaults in repayment schedule, in repayments. Detailed discussion whether the company has taken loan from any financial banks or debenture holders. If it is not used for the purpose for which it has been used, then that detail has to be given. Whether the term has been, if diverted, then where it has been used. Again, Schedule 3 में हमने इसका disclosure किया है. Whether the funds taken to meet the obligation of the subsidiaries, अगर subsidiaries के लिए कौन लोग, whether the funds taken to meet the obligation of subsidiaries, associates or JV, that detail has to be given. Whether the fund has been taken by pledging the security of subsidiaries, that detail has to be given. So detailed disclosure so far as the borrowings is concerned. Whether the company is a willful defaulter, again, basically all these details are given in the Schedule 3. One additional disclosure is regarding the whether short-term funds have purposes. ये भी CARO 2003 में था, बाद में इसको delete कर दिया. Now it has been further introduced. It gives the health of the company. अगर short-term fund अगर long-term purpose के लिए यूज हुए हैं तो उसकी करंट रेशो इफेक्ट हो जाएगी, और इट शोज द कंपनी कैन हैव द फाइनेंशियल प्रॉब्लम. सो दिस डिस्क्लोजर इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर द फाइनेंशियल हेल्थ ऑफ द कंपनी. एडिशनल डिस्क्लोजर इज रिक्वायर्ड whether the term are given the clauses term loan utilized for other purposes, whether declared willful defaulter or short term used for long term, nature and amount. These disclosures are required. I've given the PPT, you will get the copy of the PPT. Application of funds raised by way of IPO or FPO, ये पहले भी था. This is not a new disclosure. Regarding निधि company, same disclosure as it was earlier. Only addition is पहले disclosure repayment default और उसके principal और default का नहीं था. That additional clause is provided. Otherwise, the disclosure is the same. Now, I discuss the amended clause disclosure, whether the company was required to be registered under section 45(1)(a) of the RBI Act and the company has not taken the registration. We see the 50-50% clause. If the company has its assets more than 50% in financial assets and is more than 50% income from the financial assets like dividend, interest, profit on sale of securities, then the company is required to be registered under section 45(1)(a) of the RBI Act, and we are required to report to RBI also, in addition to reporting under CARO, that the company is doing the NBFC activity and has not obtained the registration from the RBI. That was our duty. earlier also. And if the company is conducting the NBFC business, but there were one exemption in RBI Act itself. If the company is doing the financing activities, but was not supposed to be registered as NBFC. So to avoid the wrong disclosure in the CARO or to report to the RBI, they have further given the basic reporting requirement itself that core investment company, if the company is a core investment company, then that company is not required to be registered under RBI. So if it is a core investment company, then here we have to state that it is a core investment company. And if it is a core investment company, then it is not required to be registered. So briefly, what is a core investment company? A core investment company is that company 90% of its assets are in the form of investments or loans in the group companies. First, 90% of its total assets are in the form of investments or loans to the group companies, number one. Number two, 60% of its total assets are investment in equity shares of group companies. Two. Number three, that company does not have any public fund. It has any borrowing. It has not has any loan from any body corporate. It does not have any public fund. Number four, the size of total assets is less than 100 crores. If four conditions are fulfilled, then it is a core investment company and is not required to be registered with the RBI. So that exemption is there. Accordingly, we will report here that company is a core investment company. So thirdly, what is the requirement that it requires? How many core investment companies are there in the group? You have to report. So you have to obtain the list of the core investment company from your auditee. Apart from that company, if you are not auditor of all the companies, why this requirement? This is also very important to understand. What RBI says, if the group has more than one CIC, then the total assets of all CIC together should not exceed 100 crores. So the group may not be using the exemption of CIC by having more than one CIC, say two CICs having 90 crores total assets. If two CICs in the group have more than 100 crores, then all the CICs are required to be registered. So this is the requirement to be reported under CARO. So far as this NBFC business is concerned. Another change is regarding cash losses. Whether the company has incurred cash losses in the financial year and also in the immediately preceding financial year. If so, that amount has to be stated. This was also in CARO 2003. Then it was abolished. Now it is further introduced. Earlier in 2003, this clause was saying whether the company has incurred cash losses in the financial or in the immediately preceding financial years, but it was not applicable in the initial 5 years from the date of incorporation. First 5 years, this clause was not applicable, but here in further introduction, it becomes applicable from the first year itself. So that is to be reported. Then statutory auditor's resignation. If you are obtained, you got the audit after the resignation of the earlier auditor, then whether the issues the auditor has raised while resigning, or if there is any objection or concern raised by the auditor and you have no objection, whether those issues have been considered by the auditor or not, that you have to give in the CARO report. This is a very, very important point, interplay of ratio analysis with the CARO 2020. जो रेशियो एनालिसिस और एजिंग शेड्यूल 3 में दी है मैनेजमेंट ने, उसका इंटरप्ले विद द रिपोर्टिंग इन द CARO 2020. ये कहता है एबिलिटी ऑफ कंपनी टू मीट इट्स लायबिलिटीज इन द नेक्स्ट 1 year. The comment is to you have to see the ability of the company. What it says on the basis of the financial ratios, number one. Number two, aging, which is given in schedule 3. expected dates of realization of the financial assets and payment of the financial liabilities, and other information accompanying the financial जो annual report के साथ जो other information management ने दी है, and the auditor knowledge of the board of directors and management plans. ये चार चीज के बेस पे वो पूछता है auditor to opine that what is the opinion, what the opinion is to give the opinion that no material uncertainty exists as on the date of audit report, that the company shall be in a position to meet its liabilities existing at the date of balance sheet when they fall due within a period of 1 year. क्या कहता है, हम मार्च 2022 की बैलेंस शीट ऑडिट कर रहे हैं, तो मार्च 2022 को जो भी लायबिलिटीज थी और मार्च 23 तक पे होनी थी, which were due to be paid March 23, मतलब एक साल में जो लायबिलिटीज पे होनी थी, whether the company would be able to pay those liabilities by 23 or not, that is to be reported. और कौन सी डेट पे आपको देखना है material uncertainty, you have to see the material uncertainty as on the date of audit report, not the 31st March 22. Suppose you are signing the balance sheet on 1st September 22, then we have to see the material uncertainty as on the date of 1st September 22, not on 31st March 22. तो आपने जिम्मेदारी क्या आपको देखना कि आपको मार्च 22 में कौन सी लायबिलिटीज थी जो कि मार्च 22 तक पे होनी है. फर्स्ट दैट लिस्ट we have to obtain. Then first events occurring after the balance sheet date. ऐसा तो नहीं हो गया 31st मार्च से लेके ऑडिट रिपोर्ट तक कोई ऐसा इवेंट हो गया कि कंपनी may not be able to pay their liabilities. If you know the event, otherwise we should obtain the list, the detail, the out of the liabilities which were due as on 31st March to be paid in 1 year. Out of those liabilities, how many liabilities were already paid by the date of audit report, and how much remained pending. Then, as on the date of audit report, what is the current ratio? What is the current ratio? If the current ratio as on the date of audit report is negative, is less than 1, then there is uncertainty, because liabilities are still higher than the assets as on the date of audit report. The company may not be able to pay. So all those things, then suppose the company current ratio is negative, whether the company has tied up for further funds to meet their liabilities, all those things have to be properly documented, have to be properly obtained to reply under this clause. This clause in itself is not that easy, depending upon the circumstance of the company. If the company's current ratio is fairly good, then it will be easy for us to reply under this point. If the company's current ratio is at risk, then we are also at risk. So we are not astrologers. We have to obtain documents properly while replying under this clause. Then the last clause is regarding the CFS. It will be applicable only in the case of the consolidated financial statements. अगर consolidated financial statements इसे पहले CARO applicable नहीं था, अब CARO applicable है so far as this reporting is concerned. CFS के केस में जितने भी components हैं holding company के, उनकी CARO report के अंदर जो भी adverse point है, those are to be given in the CFS of the consolidated CARO of the CFS. So this is what is required so far as the CFS is concerned. And with this, I complete the deliberation on so far as CARO is concerned. 129(1) की penalties मेरे को बताने की जरूरत नहीं है. Everybody knows. Management के ऊपर जिम्मेदारी है और auditor के ऊपर भी उसकी applicability क्या है. Board report में 2 changes हैं, वो मैं दोनों में डिस्कस कर लेता हूँ. एक change है whether any application is pending or initiated against the company in IBC, that is to be given by the board in its report. और सेकेंड इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, जब कंपनी ने फाइनेंस लिया था किसी बैंक से, फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशन से, जो वैल्यूएशन ऑफ एसेट्स उस समय जो थे, और जब कंपनी ने ओटीएस कराया, वन टाइम सेटलमेंट किया, उस वक्त उसके वैल्यूएशन ऑफ एसेट्स क्या है, उसमें जो चेंज है, दैट हैज टू बी रिपोर्टेड विद द रीजन इन द बोर्ड रिपोर्ट. विद दिस आई कंप्लीट माय डेलिब्रेशन. इफ यू हैव इट वुड बी वेलकम.
So one question on it can be any circumstance. So just to give you one example, it's a real example. So can you hear me? Hello.
Sumit ji?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes.
Sir, please speak.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm hearing.
Sir, just to take this example of dividend. So let's say it's a real example because let's say what has happened because the company has declared dividend say in the 2000 financial year 21-22, right? They get out of profit in 2022. So that was it was in accordance. The profits were there, everything was there, and the auditor they didn't objected to it. And he reported that the dividend was declared in compliance with 123. Now, in the next year, what happens is error is detected, or let's say a fraud is detected, okay? And the profits of the previous year now becomes losses. Now, what let's say I'm not using the word fraud. Let's assume because fraud is anyways to be reported. So let's say if it's an error. Now, whether the auditor is required to report that for the previous year the dividend, because comparatives are required to be given. Now, whether the auditor is required to report that the dividend for the previous year was, though in the previous report I have stated that it was in accordance with 123, but now it is not in accordance with 123 because errors were adjusted in the books.
Yes.
And this could even happen with the managerial remuneration also.
Yes. I apply your point. Basically, this is reporting under section 143.3. Right? Yeah. This is not schedule 3, so comparative is not required.
Comparative, sir, but in the when I asked you the question on the conduit financing, you said comparative के लिए भी देना पड़ेगा.
But I'm saying schedule 3 because this conduit funding is we are disclosing in schedule 3. Schedule 3.
Oh.
This dividend disclosure is not in schedule 3. It is the main audit report. Now it says
it is in CARO, correct.
Dividend declared. Yeah, I'm coming to that 123. This requirement. It says dividend declared and dividend paid are in confirmation with the section 123. Like interim dividend is a dividend declared and paid during the year itself. Right. Final dividend is proposed by the board and is paid in the next year. It is proposed in the year and paid in the next following year. So when the dividend is declared in AGM itself and paid in the after declaration by the AGM. So interim dividend is during the year. Even if there was error, it was paid in the earlier year. So if it is in compliance with section 123, we have already reported it was in compliance of section 123. So we need not say that earlier our report was not correct. Earlier our report was correct. Now you say that there was an error, and that error was of so much amount that you can say that the accounts of my earlier year was not true and fair. You are saying like that.
Yeah, but sir, if you look at, I agree with what you're saying. So, but in the CARO, it is written that whether dividend paid during the year. So, what happens is that in the obviously, I agree with you. The dividend will be declared in the AGM, and that will be the next financial year. Now, in that financial year, the dividends it will be paid, let's say, in September, right? And the financial statement will go up to March. Now, can I say in for the second year when the dividend is actually paid, can I say that the dividend was not paid in accordance with 123 and reported?
When it is being paid, if there was no profit, I can say it is not paid. It is not in compliance section 123.
Sir,
dividend was declared in suppose for 20. We are talking of 22.
Yeah.
We take the year. Suppose we are talking of 22.
Yeah.
We are talking of 22.
For 22 September 22 में आएगा. September 22 तक तो accounts बिल्कुल clear थे, लेकिन वहाँ कुछ problem नहीं था. 31 March 23 को मेरा वो error पता चला. मैंने error को उठाया और 22 के accounts में adjust कर दिया. Now when I am reporting for 22, can I say कि इस साल जो मैंने dividend pay करा है, because it says dividend declared and paid, right? And can I say that the dividend which was paid in 22, which is related to 21, is not in accordance with 123?
देखिए डिविडेंड जो फाइनल डिविडेंड होता है, फाइनल डिविडेंड जो आपने पे किया वो 23 में पे किया, 22 में तो पे नहीं किया
सर 21 हाँ नहीं 22 में ही पे करा ना सर, FY 22 का हाँ ठीक है 23 में पे करा, यू राइट
23 में पे किया तो आप तो 23 में रिपोर्ट करेंगे उसको. You will report that only 23, not in 22.
Okay.
And by the time 23 when she was ready, you knew it. There was an
that's
error.
what my point is. Yeah, that's what my point is.
Yeah, you will report in 23 itself.
Yes.
Any other
Sir,
query?
relating to clause 3, so can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, relating to clause 3, the investments, what do we have to we just have to comment whether they are prejudicial to the interests of the company and no other comment on investments or anything else also required?
Yeah, so far as investment is concerned, there is no other comment. So far as investment is concerned.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is relating to all investments or any specific like investment in
No,
subsidiaries?
all investments. These all loans, investments, securities, guarantees to any person, all sorts of investments.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, please. If there is no other query, Sumit, and then I would.
If any participant has any query, please unmute yourself in
Thank you very
of
much.
writing through a chat box. May I request again, if any participant has any query, please unmute yourself and state the query so that everybody can get the benefit of that.
Hello.
So I believe.
Hello.
हाँ जी भाई जी बताइए.
Yes, sir. With regard to investments, is it only prejudicial or we have to see the limit under section 186 also?
You see, 180cc compliance to हम separately discuss करिए रहे ना. Whether section 186 has been complied or not. There is another clause in the CARO itself.
Okay, got it, sir. Thank you.
Any other query?
Any other query, sir? Sir, एक ये संजीव जी की है. Please explain rounding off requirement.
Yes. Rounding of requirement is given, the detail is given up to 100 crores. Up to 100 crores, it can be 100 or it can be thousands, it can be lakhs, as per the choice of the management. अभी हम India's में वैसे ही करते हैं. Same provision is there in the Schedule 3 also. There is no change. We have been doing it for long. It can be up to decimals, 2 decimals.
I think there is no query left, sir. And thank you for your wonderful deliberation and your time, sir.
Thank you very much, and all the participants, and making it a very interactive session. Thank you very much.
No, sir. It was really a great session, sir. And thank you for all your efforts and the time that you have given to all the participants. And I'm also thanking to all the participants who have joined our study circle. With these words, I will request all the participants, please अपने आप को unmute करें सारे. And please give a big hand of applause for Tarun ji.
Thank you very much.
Sir, webinar में कोई momentum there is, sir. This is the only thing that we can give a big round of applause to you, sir.
This is an asset for me.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
so
you.
please
Thank you,
provide
sir.
the PPT.
Ma'am, as soon as we'll get from the sir, we will immediately share with all the participants. In fact, the public in CF rated in large. So that's not a problem. So I believe हमें within a day or two अभी मिल जाएगा और by Tuesday or Wednesday हम आपको सबका share भी करेंगे.
Sir, you can share the PPT in chat box also.
I'll provide.
Okay. First, one more thing, sir. If any participant feels कि there is any other topic जो हम in a study circle we can take.
Yes.
So please give us a mail for that, or instead of writing in a chat box, you can directly mail to us or directly give a WhatsApp. You can send message through a text message or a WhatsApp message, or you can give a call to us also, so that we can arrange for that particular topic at the earliest with the best speaker available. And with these words, I am thanking again to Tarun sir and to all the participants. Have a nice weekend and Vande Mataram. Thank you, Ji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ji.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.